Welcome to this week's meeting of the Rockland Board of Selectmen, coming to you live on WRPS from the H. Bernard Monahan Memorial Room here at Rockland Town Hall. On the agenda this week, we've got articles for special town meeting, Union Point license, and town drainage issues. Now here's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, Mr. Ed Kimball.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's meeting. Would you all please rise and join us for a Pledge of Allegiance led by our Veterans Agent, Tony Materna.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. It's okay. The audience participants and general public should be aware that any and all portions of this open meeting may be recorded by audio and video resources. All or some of this meeting may be rebroadcast periodically by WRPS or other outlets. Persons want a DVD copy of this meeting should contact WRPS or the Board of Selectmen's office. A small fee will be charged. With that, tonight we have open forum. We have a Memorial Day parade. And Tony Materna, you want to speak on it, Tony?
Good evening. Okay, rapidly approaching is Memorial Day weekend. We have a lot on the agenda. Flagging of the veteran cemeteries will be done on May 27th. And we're going to meet at the VFW Hall at 12 o'clock. And I encourage anyone and everyone to come forward to help put down close to 2,000 flags in our cemeteries here in town. It's always been a great thing for me to see the young children get involved, and it's just a utterly fantastic thing to see them, how they respect what they're doing to help the Memorial Day weekend. And we will then have on Sunday, May 28th, we're going to have a short service down here at Union Square with the VFW Honor Guard, fireman salute and taps played in their honor. And also on Monday morning on May 29th, St. Patrick's Cemetery, there will be a brief ceremony at the Stone Mark flagpole starting at 8 a.m. with the VFW Honor Guard firing a salute and taps played in their honor. Followed then by the Memorial Day Parade, which will be starting. First call will be at 9:30. Starting at 10 a.m. we'll step off and we'll proceed to the Mount Pleasant Cemetery for services. We will then reform and march back down Summit Street to Union Street, turn left on Union to the library, to the Rockland Memorial Library for our second ceremony. From then, we will proceed down Union Street, go right on Taunton Avenue, and proceed down to the Veterans Memorial for our closing ceremony. We encourage anybody and everybody to respect what Memorial Day stands for, and certainly appreciate the participation we do get from the town for our Memorial Day service. In case of rain, I'm hoping, and I haven't talked to Ed Lafayette, but I'm sure they're going to be behind us. Like last year, we had to use the auditorium at the high school for a service we had to quickly put together. However, we haven't had much of any rain in the past years. I should not say that too loud. Hopefully, it'll be a nice, comfortable day, and we'll go forward with our parade and encourage anybody and everybody to participate. The more, the better understanding what Memorial Day is all about. So I do thank you for the opportunity to be here and announce the Memorial Day festivities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda, we
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yeah.
I have both, but very difficult moment even for me, and I know it's going to be a difficult moment for Tony. We're both emotional guys, but Tony has informed me yesterday that he is resigning from his position effective July 1st. Retiring. Both. Retiring, and well-deserved retirement at this point. Tony has been with the town for about 14 years. I know that as we get closer to your retirement date, Tony, that we will all pay you all the tributes that you deserve. I can say that I've enjoyed working with you for the last 9 years. You've been a big help on a number of occasions here. I know that you spearheaded cell phones for troops. I know a number of people from surrounding towns that come here for advice. You were an advisor to the state. You were an advisor to the VA. I know you worked at the VA for a very long time, and Virtually everyone in the area who is a veterans agent calls on Tony for references about all of the things and how to do it right and how to do the job properly. And I know a number of veterans from other towns, and not to disparage other veterans agents, but when they have the opportunity, they'd rather come here and talk to Tony. His expertise, honestly, is unsurpassed by any other veterans agent in the area, and he will be sorely missed. And we will be, of course, doing the right thing by you, Tony, when you retire, but we'll miss you.
Thank you very much.
Tony,
Thank you very much.
we're both this way. I'm going to miss him. Thank you. That brings us to what is not going to be an easy situation, and just to outline briefly for the board, I began working when Tony told me yesterday that he was planning on retiring, not resigning, and he's already been a big help even in this. We have established the protocols and job descriptions along with Stacy downstairs. We would like to start advertising as soon as possible. It is my sincere hope that we will get that into the paper and advertised on Wednesday or Thursday, and that Stacy and I, along with Tony, he's agreed to help us interview candidates. We'll narrow the field down to the top 3 or 4 candidates for the Board of Selectmen to interview at the June 6th meeting. At that June 6th meeting, we will present candidates to you with their resumes. You will have the opportunity to interview them. The protocols, I do not have them with me tonight, but we've looked at what other towns have done in advertising a veterans agent's position. We've talked to Tony. Stacy's been very busy with healthcare reform and has promised me that we'll have it ready no later than Thursday. We want to advertise. We'll probably keep it open, but we would like applications, if possible, to be in by May 30th or 31st. That would give us until the 6th to cull through those. Possibly bring some people in for preliminary interviews. Stacy and I and Tony are here with a presentation to the board on the 6th. If that works, hopefully they would only need 2 weeks. Some people may be available, we don't know, but that would give us hopefully a little bit of training time while Tony is here. And Tony has graciously offered to do 2 things: both work with us, with whomever comes after him in training, and 2, this year is Rockland's turn to host the Tri-Town Parade, which is a huge undertaking in and of itself, and he has promised that he will be here to participate both in the coordination of that and to work with the next veterans agent. But truly, an era is passing here in Rockland, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anton.
Thanks, Tony.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we have minutes. Item number 2, open session minutes of May 1st, 2017.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Item number 3, open session minutes of May 2nd, 2017.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Again, unanimous vote. Unfinished business. We have item number 4, appointment of eligible applicant for the elementary school project. Mr. Chalker.
It is just one in a number of steps that the town is going to have to take going forward as we make a determination and do the feasibility study with the state. But usually it is the chief executive officer of the town who is the eligible applicant. I'm just asking for a ratification of that board. In this case, it would be Mr. Kimball.
Chairman, I was wondering if we might be able to open the floor for motions for nomination for that position.
Basically, the way it works, Deidre, according to the state, was that typically in that position is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, typically, who would be the point person on the paperwork. As far as chairing the committee for the school, building committee, that's going to be up for whoever's selected. I'm not going to be that person. I'll be a member of that committee, but I'm not going to be chairman of the school building committee.
No, I understand, but this is to appoint somebody to represent the chief executive official, correct, on the feasibility committee or the school building committee?
It's for the school feasibility study for the building committee.
Correct.
per the state's paperwork. That's when we had a meeting with the state, we had a conference call. They said that typically this person does this person does that. Like the superintendent cannot be that person, usually it's somebody else, and so forth. But if you want to discuss it, I'm happy to discuss it with
Yeah, I'd
anybody.
like to kind of, personally, I'd like to see the regulations that state that it needs to be the chairman of the Board of Selectmen. I think that we have other candidates on the board that are just as qualified and may be able to, may be interested in that position as well. So are we under some sort of time restraints on this?
We have been trying to meet a guideline for the school building authority. I was looking basically for ratification of, the CMR is right in front of you in the email, and it says eligible applicant means the chief executive official where prescribed by statute or charter in any city or town. I believe that's the statute,
And forgive me if I'm wrong, but the chief executive official for the town of Rockland is the board, correct?
no, it's the official, it's not the chief executive board.
I understand, but we act as a board. We don't act individually as
In
individuals.
this case, they're looking for one person who is the eligible applicant from the state, and it's what we did the last time.
I understand maybe what we did the last time. I just want to ensure that we're doing it properly.
I've never seen it done any other way.
So,
According to the phone conversation that we had with the MSBA, they said typically it's the chairman of the Board of Selectmen who fills that role. And then they give you guidelines in the feasibility study of who they would like to see from what facets appointed to the school building committee. For example, our board will be able to select individuals at large, okay? And then the school puts candidates forward as well, the school
Correct.
committee.
I've seen them, there's like a matrixy. I've seen it. It's like a chart that
Yep.
dictates, you know, to make sure.
So
that
when we had met to go
proper
over the
stakeholders are there.
timelines, we had a conference call with MSBA to go over the timelines. And in that, we have until,
June's,
I want to
the
say,
first part of the June.
I think it was the first week in June to meet the milestone. So the idea was to appoint someone as that person. I mean, right now, they address all the stuff to me anyhow, but they CC everybody else. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't have a problem filling that role, and I don't have a problem with whoever wants to be part of that committee as well, you know? But that's the way it was explained to me.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, Deidre, like, I do agree, like, I think the language and the regulations, I mean, like, as a board, I believe we serve as the executive branch of body as a town. And I believe that we do have the latitude to, even though the MSBA has said conventionally as the chairman, I do believe we have some latitude to appoint like a member of the executive. That being said, I would actually nominate Ed for that position. I think his work over the past 8 to 10 months on this project already with the MSBA, with the feasibility study, like attending the meetings, the in-person meetings, the meeting in Boston, our conference calls, the experience he also brings from the last building project to this project, just in terms of the process, his understanding of the community, the finances and the budgeting in town, but also combined with that, his construction experiences, all those all blended together. In addition to the fact that he is the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I think really makes him, congratulations that in my mind, but fit that role, so.
From where I sit, I think that from what I've heard from residents is that their primary concern with this is cost. And so from where I'm sitting, I think it's very important that whoever we nominate to this position has the background and the education and the experience to represent that particular interest and concern of our residents. And if I had the opportunity, I would like to nominate Mike O'Laughlin for that particular position. I think as, chairman of the Finance Committee, he has the know-with-all and the experience in order to represent that interest. I don't know if we have a meeting of the minds on whether or not it is officially the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I would respectfully request that we table this until our next meeting, till we can get some further guidance on that.
I'm going to second Mike's motion.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Do we want to take a vote then? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we have 4 and 1, so motion carries.
4-1.
Next up, item number 5. We have Farmers Market, June 16th.
Mr. Chairman, Jean Delaney is not here. My understanding is Michelle Finn is here to speak on behalf of the farmers market.
If you could come up, please.
Hello. My name is Michelle Finn, and I work for the Rockland Youth Commission, and I'm also the market manager for the Rockland Farmers Market, which is going to be starting June 16th on Fridays this summer, right here in front of Town Hall. And I'm here to talk about waiving the peddler's license for the Rockland Farmers Market and also for Rockland Day. We've been talking with other vendors in other towns that this is not enforced in the other towns. I've spoken with Quincy, Weymouth, Cohasset, Hingham, Marshfield, and none of them have a peddler's license fee. Also, Eston and Jefferson have yearly craft fairs that the vendors do not pay a peddler's fee for that. So they basically sign a contract and pay for the table fee, and there's no other licensing that's needed. And we've talked about getting the fourth floor artists involved, and they don't have the insurance requirements to be able to participate as well. And also the Sandpaper Factory, they also have other vendors that want to get involved, and if there's this peddler's license, then we won't be able to involve them as well. And so that's what we're looking to do.
Mr.
You'll
Chairman,
say-
if I may.
Yep, go ahead.
I've been assigned as the liaison to the Youth Commission, and I met with both Ms. Finn and Ms. Delaney earlier this week. We talked a little bit about this issue. I did a little research kind of into the issue, called some communities, as Michelle said. But here, the peddler's license is basically a permission that's given to a party that otherwise wouldn't have the right to do something, because without the license, it would be considered illegal, a trespass, or some sort of tort. But the farmer's market application is actually a contract between the town and the vendors, the craftsmen and the farmers. So they're already, they pay a fee to the town, I believe it's, what was it, $150?
$150.
And then we're conferring on them a benefit, which is the right to sell their produce or their crafts at the market. So they're paying almost a user fee already to us. And in exchange for that user fee, we're giving them the right to sell these goods at the market. So they're getting a particularized benefit already. So whether or not they need a license here, when we've already sort of given them the authority to sell these by them exchanging the fee in exchange for the benefit, I don't know whether, I just don't think it applies. Again, in past practice, the board hasn't required these peddler's licenses for craft fairs and the holiday stroll, for that matter. Whether it's the craft fair at the senior center or the craft fair at the schools, the vendors are paying a fee, and then they're able to, usually I think at the schools it's like a fundraiser, so the school is making some money off of it, and there is no license fee required there. So this particular situation is just like the stroll and the craft fair, and it's because it's a town-sponsored event, and I think that to treat the crafters or them differently could be overburdening those vendors, and could be seen as an act that's a little arbitrary by the licensing board if we make that requirement. But I also want to applaud the Youth Commission for doing this, for taking this on. I don't know how many of you actually know me personally, but I do wear a number of hats, including attorney and environmentalist, municipal manager. But one hat that I never take off is that I'm a mom, right? And it's probably the proudest hat that I wear. And I really commend the Youth Commission for stepping forward and taking this initiative to try to help the community, especially our children, see where our fresh foods come from. The farmers market will teach our children about our food and allow us to establish a relationship with the people who grow our food. And it'll teach kids, the importance of the hard work that goes into growing healthy foods. So these people who are participating in this particular farmers market are local people. They're local farmers, local crafters, and, you know, they want to invest in us, and we need to make sure that we're not putting any unnecessary obstacles in their way. I personally think that this project is planting the initial seeds for the community involvement in our downtown revitalization project. Therefore, I'd like to make a motion that the farmers market and, again, and other community-supported events like the Rockland Day be exempt from this peddler's license, being that they're already paying this fee. It's to benefit the community, and that they be allowed to participate with the payment of their table fee and the execution of the indemnification and liability waiver that's contained in the application.
And would they go through, in this particular case, whoever was sponsoring that event? So if it's a youth commission, the youth commission will be responsible for those people there? And so on, you know, to vet them and all that?
Correct. I believe Michelle has already, you know, she's been in contact with all these people. I mean, a lot of these people either have local establishments in town or they participate in other markets, so there are other, you know, references that they can contact.
I mean, I think we want to make sure it's a success because it'll be a first time around at it. So we want to make sure we have a...
So all of the vendors that I've talked to, which are like Freitas Farm in Middleborough, they basically participate in all other farmers markets. So this is something that they do on the norm, and they never have to pay any type of peddler's fee.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to waiving the peddler's fee.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that there'll be a responsible party for it to make sure that everything's up to what it has to be up to. And, I mean, that was the whole idea of having the peddler's license to begin with, was that we had a health agent who will go through and make sure everything was, you know, healthy. They weren't selling,
Right.
you know, food that shouldn't be sold type of thing.
Right. Well,
Even
for
though
ins-
it's grown locally,
Right.
it has a shelf life.
Right, and a lot of like the companies that I'm working with, like Spritzel Cookies out of Sandpaper Factory, like they have their food, they have their cookies in Whole Foods. Like all the vendors that I'm working with, like they're legit businesses that, you know, it's not just,
And yeah, and this I don't think would exempt the, if they needed to get any other type of Board of Health license, because they're cooking, or they're, I know if there's like an open grill, I believe there's a Board of Health license.
right,
That would
they'll
still
have
apply.
to, they'll
This
still
is
have to
just
go
for
to the Board of
peddler's
Health
fee,
and get any
peddler's license.
licensing to do with the Board of Health and, you know, permits that they need from them.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a few questions, if that's okay. I agree with the premise of waiving the fee completely. I just, for the purpose of, and I think other events might be different, just in the fact that you look at the holiday store, you look at some vendors for Rockland Day, you look at like the craft fairs at the schools, those might be less, if you will, like established entities. I think, you know, the businesses, like in the growers, the entities that you just mentioned, for example, could be more established. So, like, I just wonder, first of all, like, if we keep the same requirements in terms of them like filling out the application, especially in terms of like for tax purposes and the like in the federal ID number and everything along those lines, but we then waive the fee. I think then we'll have everything, I think from the town's point of view, just covered, or maybe like a little better than we would have if we just didn't have that information. But the second, I'll point to that, like at the outset of this conversation that you mentioned, that some of the fourth floor artists wouldn't be able to participate based on insurance. Does that mean like every entity who will be here and will be participating has their own insurance and has gone through that whole process in terms of that whole vetting? Like, I know we're like indemnifying the town through this, but like in addition to that, will they have their own insurances, or how will that work?
Right. Well, some of them may, but some of them might not. For instance, like when we talk about, like, say, the craft fairs,
Yeah.
like a lot of these people, like if they hand crochet something and they really don't make enough from it to make a actual business of it, so it's, you know, they wouldn't you know.
But I don't believe that we're asking for that, you know, in the other events we're doing, Mr. Mullen. I don't, in the events we're doing in the schools, I do not believe that that's a requirement. And my concern is treating similarly situated parties differently.
I understand, but this, at least in the past 13 months that I've been here, this is, and just from this board's point of view, I just want to make sure we're covered. You know, I mean, like, I think what happens, like in other committees and boards, is perfectly legitimate. I just want to make sure, like, the votes we're taking, we're covered in terms of insurance and liability and everything else, along with the fact that I believe we should just waive the peddler's fee and just require the same, same exact process, but just waive the fee, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if anyone else has any thoughts, or Mr. Chalker, if you have any.
You know, I have to tell you, I don't think we've ever asked for peddler's fee for any of those other events. This is a new event, so it's being scrutinized probably a little more closely as we try and make sure we do it and do it right. But I don't believe we've had fees for, you know, anyone participating, for example, in the stroll that goes to Rockland One, the charity. So I do not have will of the board, I guess, at this point.
I'll second the motion.
I just want to warn the peddlers as well that if they're selling anything by weight, and we've gone through this, it has to be, now you've got to get a seal of weights and
I
measures.
have to go to the fire department and.
You can sell a banana for $1. If you start to sell bananas by the pound, you have to go through the sealer and weights, weights and measures, so.
Yes, I have been informed of that.
Okay, so you can sell a bag of whatever, a bag of tomatoes. If you start selling tomatoes by the pound, the scale has to be sealed.
Yep.
So, thank you. They need a vote.
Oh,
I know. She was leaving. I didn't want Michelle to leave.
I've never done this before.
And thank you again for everything you do. This is incredible.
We're looking
I
forward.
truly, I love Rockland, and I feel like this is going to be huge for our community, for the families, and just, you know, it's like we love Rockland, but I want everyone else to know from surrounding towns what Rockland is and, you know, our community.
Thank you.
Okay, so any other discussion? Okay, we had a motion, we had a second. All those in favor of waiving the fees? Unanimous vote, thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with it. Item number 6. We have special town meeting articles.
Item
Chalker.
number 6, Mr. Chairman, the special town meeting that the board opened at the last meeting, and I know that we did not have all the details in front of you at the time. We had become aware of the property at 16 Webster Street being for sale, and also, for the first time probably in the history of Rockland, our ability to possibly have the funds available to purchase such a property, which could improve parking. We're looking at, I believe it's the old, the older or more veteran members would be that property on Webster Street on the north side, just to the left. Right now, it's a boarded-up building behind what would be the old Douglas Jewelers. And Anita Marie's and a couple of other facilities, and around the corner from the Rockland Bar and Grill and across the street from Rockland Athletics. But one of the problems we do have here in Rockland, certainly in certain areas more than others, but especially in that end, is parking. So I have talked with Attorney Galvin about the process for possibly taking it from municipal use by eminent domain, and would like to ask the board, you know, their inclination towards taking this property. I understand it just recently sold at a price of about $210,000. And there are 2 other properties behind in your books. They are highlighted on a plot plan. Whether or not you'd be interested, quite honestly, the Articles 2 and 3 we put in while we could take the opportunity for further consideration. I don't know that we're in a position to buy those properties at this point in time. However, the property at 16 Webster Street certainly fits with the contour of the parking that exists behind that business block. It is property that could become available, and we would have to establish at some point in time rules and regulations and parking and all of that point. But if we want to move, we do have to do so by June 30th before the funds dry up and roll over into next year's free cash. So if the board were so inclined, it's a piece of property that I know I've seen. I've asked members to go up and look at. I have spoken with a number of people from the Rockland revitalization area as well as businessmen. And we would be looking at establishing a town meeting, if the board was so inclined, on June 19th. We would have to get 150 voters to go to that meeting and approve the purchase, at which point we would proceed. We have advertising times we have to meet. We had to look at the umpiring schedule of the town moderator, but it all works out for Mr. Henderson, so that's what it's all about, as you know, that and the hokey pokey. But Mr. Henderson can be there. I think it makes sense for the town. We have the funds. There has not been an inordinate amount of money at all spent at this point in time in doing anything to the building. We could certainly notify the recent purchaser of the building to maybe not do anything at this point while the town makes its decision, but it is up to the board to make a decision whether or not to go forward at this point in time. Any questions, I'll do my best.
Any questions from the board?
This is the property that connects directly to the back of the Anita Marie's parking lot?
Anita Marie's, someplace.
The barber shop and someplace.
Yeah, and Douglas, it's, as you can see by the plot plan, and even if you were to go up and look, it's a straight line shot at the back of
Into the
those
back lot.
buildings where there is additional parking behind those businesses. And it is around the corner from the computer store, Rockland Bar and Grill. It's someplace where certainly you could find parking
Prime spot, yeah.
and be able to go to, and it becomes a municipal parking lot,
Which we need.
which we need.
Yeah.
It would help the 40R.
Yeah, absolutely.
Advance.
This is one thing in the whole 40-hour process. I mean, we heard from many people, and folks and residents and businesses who thought it was great that we were looking at this, but at the 40-hour, I mean, but the second question out of their breath was, well, what about parking? And I think, and I always answered, well, the 40-hour, like step number one, the parking is step number two, and lo and behold, I think hopefully we might be at step number two in terms of beginning to plan the longer term parking strategy and have some options available to us.
We would be required, Mr. Mullen, and a question you asked me earlier, we would be required to do a couple of appraisals on the property. I mean, we can't just say we're going to give somebody this much. We're limited to how much we can spend. We have to get a certified appraisal in order to expend the public funds. And we would be trying to place some additional funding in this budget item for the removal of the structure as well. But we're looking to try and take the building, take the property at this point in time. And so time is of the essence because we did intentionally leave some funds unappropriated at town meeting, as this came up just at town meeting, if you remember ours, and to give us time to investigate. So if that money is not encumbered by June 30th, and that's why a June 19th meeting, it will roll over into next year's free cash amount.
One more question. Just as on Articles 2 and 3, number one, we know, well, we know that property is in, I guess, shall I say, the works, in some type of process.
Right.
Do we have any idea or like any inclination about the properties listed in Articles?
When I
2 or
first
3?
when I first asked the Realtor about Article 1, which is 16 Webster Street, it was mentioned to take a look at those two properties. So I wanted to include them while we continue to evaluate. At this point, there is a house on one of them, and one of them's a very small lot. I'm not saying they may be available next year if the town was so inclined, but I don't know if we have both the funds to do the 3 properties and/or the removal of the structures and everything that we have to do, one. Number two, I really don't know about I hate to use the word, I'll use the word efficiency or efficacy of the other 2 lots. So
So this would give us
I would
the
recommend
option
that,
of evaluating between now and town meeting.
my recommendation to the board is only Article 1,
Okay.
and to disapprove Article 2 and 3 at this point in time.
Motion to approve Article 1?
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Do we have any idea I know what the prior use for some of the old mill sites were, but do we have any idea what the prior use was? I know there's a house on it. I'm just not as familiar with the history of the site for 21E purposes. Because if we do, we want to make sure we look to if there's a possibility that there could be some environmental hazards on the site, which could, increase the costs associated with getting it, into municipal ownership.
Even if the town made a decision to purchase at this point and to proceed, at that point, we could continue. But I know it just sold, I believe it was just a home, and it just sold for 210. Whether or not they did their 21Es at this point in time.
Just for liability purposes, we should keep that in mind, that, I understand you're talking about the cost of the
Certainly
demolition of the
something-
structure, but if there is some contamination on site,
It's a legitimate concern that we should address, but we would have time to address between now and town meeting.
great, thank you.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of placing Article 1 on the special town meeting? That's a vote, unanimous.
Make a motion that we do not put Article 2 on the town meeting warrant.
Second.
All those in favor? It's a unanimous vote.
Mr. Chairman, I also make a motion that Article 3 also be passed over at this time and not put on the warrant for the
Second.
special town meeting.
All those in favor? That's a unanimous vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Item number 7, new business. We have common victual license 4. We have Fireball Restaurant, 928 Hingham Street.
Is someone
Anybody here
here from
from-
Fireball? It's a common vic license.
Motion to approve, all paperwork being appropriate.
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous vote. Other item on number 7, we have Rockland House of Pizza, 197 Union Street. Come on up, please.
Mr. Chaka, I don't have that application.
Which
I don't
one?
think. I have 2 for Fireball. Oh, nope, you want to know what? It's just out of order. I got it, thank you.
Good evening. Yep, right up there.
My name is John Caravelos. I was a design engineer on the Rockland House of Pizza. And Mr. Odysseus worked hard, Mr. Restos worked hard with the building department, the fire department, and the ADA compliance. He wants to bring jobs to the community, and he's well worthy and everything. I've known him some time, and he's a very well-nurtured person. He liked to put jobs in the community and everything. And he put his heart and soul with his family into this business. He has spent a lot of money. My name is John Caravelos from Peabody, Massachusetts.
Peabody?
Yeah.
All the paperwork's in order. Motion to approve. We welcome everybody.
Second.
Work hard.
Yeah, you'll be a credit to the, he's like a restaurant my dad had in Peabody, like my uncle had.
We had a second. All those in favor? So vote, thank you.
Welcome.
One more pizza place to the long list.
We might have just moved up.
Hard
This
business.
We're in
this
top 100
could
now.
definitely move us
In
up
the
from
top
number
100, I think.
150.
Yeah.
There you go.
Moving on up.
You're all set.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
License will be available tomorrow.
Item number 8, we have Union Point one-day licenses, South Coast Connected. Mr. Chaka.
As you know, they're going to move some of the events over to Union Point, and they needed to apply for 4 one-day licenses for the events at Union Point. I do not know if someone's here on their behalf or not, but these are the one-day licenses that we were looking for.
Can we vote them as one group, or do we have to do them individually?
For one, you can do them as a group. You can approve
Then
them.
I'll make a
Motion.
motion that we approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Who was
So
the
vote.
second?
Mike?
Thank you.
Unanimous. Okay, item number 9, Police and Fire Department Regional Dispatch.
I believe the chiefs are here. If not, I can make an announcement, I guess. We've been going back and forth. Are either one of the chiefs here behind
Scott's
you?
right here, yeah.
Is there a handout on this?
Oh, hi, chief. How are you? Come on up. We have been working with Chief Duffy and Chief Llewellyn for months. As you know, there's been a drive across the state to create regional dispatches, and much to Chief Duffy's credit, he has been the driving force here in Rockland. And we put together a committee of both chiefs and representatives from both departments to look at regional dispatch, and they have made a decision, but I'll allow the chief to, with fanfare.
So the Rockland Fire Department had gone out to outsource its fire department dispatching, starting for fiscal 18. And in the process of it, the police chief decided that it would be a good move for the police department at this time. One of the big reasons for his decision, and by no means am I speaking for him, but the town of Rockland, as Alan said, the State 911 Commission is looking to consolidate as many primary answering points to 911 as possible, and to consolidate all these local dispatches that each town has. So currently, right now, the town of Rockland's sitting in a good spot where we had to, what I'd say is some negotiation leverage in order to move. And in doing so, there's a number of upgrades that will be made to the communication systems, especially for the police department. They will gain an extraordinary amount. So I commend Chief Llewellyn for making the decision at this time to do this. We looked at, there's 2 regional centers within our area that we had the possibility to go into, one being over in Holbrook. They service the towns of Norwell, Hingham. They service the towns of Norwell, Hingham, Cohasset, and Hull. And then the other one was dispatch over in Holbrook. And they predominantly a fire department-based dispatch center, Whitman Fire, Abington Fire, Sharon Fire, Canton Fire, Holbrook Fire, and also Holbrook Police. We requested quotes from each of these regional centers and what they could offer us. Each could offer us about the same amount of what they can do as far as dispatchability. So that was kind of a moot point. But what it came down to our numbers, and Holbrook was able to supply us with the better figures. So we made the decision. We took the vote to enter into an agreement with the town of Holbrook for dispatch and 911 answering point for the Holbrook Regional Emergency Communication Center. And so we're waiting on an intermunicipal agreement through Holbrook at this time.
Is the cost based on per call volume?
It is. It's based upon call volume as well as town population, how many 911 calls are coming into the system. It also is based upon what the town brings to that regional emergency communications department. For Holbrook, what it did was it increased their grant funding through the 911 Commission. So we were able to, we're not necessarily breaking even, but we will receive at least on the fire department side, we'll receive a better product in dispatch.
And you'll be able to run the second ambulance?
We're currently running the second ambulance now, so what this allows us is when we run that second ambulance, we essentially leave dispatch unmanned or no person on it. And when we talk on our radios at that point, we're talking into dead air, there's nobody there to answer us. At this point now, there'll be 24/7, 365 dedicated person answering our radio communications.
We felt it was more expensive to go to Hingham, one, and fairly cost neutral for us when we look at what our actual costs are, both police and fire combined, for dispatch to go. And I've seen estimates of up to close to $1 million in equipment upgrades and new equipment for the departments as a result of joining a regional dispatch. So we'll still have some expense. We're pulling those line items out of the departments so that we can have a dispatch line item, and you'll be able to watch that. We've got a 3-year estimate going forward. We had a 5-year from Hingham, but the Hingham dispatch was substantially higher for the cost, and we believe that the services were equal.
Mr. Chair, if I may. I assume that the dispatch services right now are being performed by union employees here in the town?
They are.
Okay, so has this been impact bargained with the union? Because we're going to be outsourcing that work to somebody else.
That's falling on the police chief's lap at this point time. He handles all the dispatch duties, or the dispatches fall under the Rockland Police Department, not with the Rockland firefighters.
So this has not been bargained yet?
Not that I'm aware
We
of.
have not made the switch yet. Dispatches are still working. The switch will take place, we think, maybe as soon as January 1st, but no sooner. It might be later than that. We are coming up in a bargaining year at the end of this 6 months, as well as Holbrook is looking at our dispatches as well. So there will be an opportunity for some of our people to go forward. But we had nothing to impact bargain yet.
So what is the motion? What are we looking to approve at this point?
At this point, it's actually a decision of the chiefs, but we wanted to inform the board. And that was just the sole source to let you know, because, people will hear it on the street, you'll hear it on the street. But the decision is based on, we have strong chief law. My understanding is they could make the decision. However, I have to sign the intermunicipal agreement, but it was a decision of the chiefs, and I had actually worked closely with the chiefs over the last 3 or 4 months, if not longer. It got down to crunch time because they had deadlines at both facilities to get their submissions into the state as well. We did want to inform the board. We are going to be working with our dispatches. Some of them may move over, some may not, but we will impact bargain with the union.
The Rockland Firefighters Union has been aware of this, has been known that this is on my agenda of things to accomplish in the near future. They are on board with it. They understand the reasons and the safety concerns. Again, I'm not speaking for them by no means of whether they approve or not, but they are well aware of the situation.
This is a bargaining year.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Chief.
Thank you. Okay, item number 10, town drainage issues. Mr. Chalker?
Mr. Chairman, as you know, we have been dealing with a situation not of our creation with additional boards at Studley Pond. We've had some flooding issues. Studley Reed's Pond, it depends if you're reading a map here or if you're a local. So let's go with Reed's Pond, I guess. The state, however, refers to it as Studley's Pond. Nevertheless, even Mr. Ryan and I have made a couple visits to the dam itself. We've met with Mr. Taylor. We've talked with Mr. Laughlin from the sewer department regarding runoff and water levels, et cetera. We've talked with state officials. There is money coming forward at some point from the state to redo the dam and the spillway. However, the state, as you know, moves notoriously slow, but it was included in some budget items. There is a problem that somebody took it upon themselves to add a couple of boards to the pond, as you know, and whether or not they can be removed and when they can be removed and by whom. This is a new problem for Mr. Taylor. It was an old problem for Mr. Corby. I actually spoke with Mr. Corby, who talked about the last time he tried to remove boards himself at the dam and actually flooded out the senior housing and parts of Rockland Place. He was at that point chastised by the state for removing the dam, for removing the boards from the dam and trying to adjust the water level, and the state came and set the water levels, and he was told not to touch it again, and he has not touched it at least in the 9 years I've been here, and probably for a couple of years before that. We are aware of some of the residents around Reed's Pond and Studley Pond who apparently want to come to this board and talk about the water levels. We're well aware of it, and I've tried to explain to them that now is not the time to remove it. Mr. Taylor has indicated to me, and I believe he is here along with Mr. Laughlin, that now is not the time to remove it, nor do we have the equipment. Mr. Corby claims he almost lost 2 men due to water flow last time, and there's been a number of ideas as to how you can do it, and I've talked to the state. But universally, whether it's locally or with the state, who does it? That may be a question. The other question is, when do you do it? And everyone agrees it should not be now. There is flooding, I believe, also down in the Wyman Fields area, and someone was talking to me earlier today about, I forget which board member.
Manzella Court.
Manzella Court, it was you, Mr. Ryan. So I don't know exactly what the solution is today. You know, it is still the middle of May, water levels are still high, people are whitewater rafting in certain areas, maybe not in Rockland, but at some point I agree that boards should be removed when it's a little safer and downstream can handle it, whether it's by us or the state, if we get the waiver of liability. I am trying to work with state officials, but there may be some people here who want to speak to the board.
Anybody in the audience who'd like to speak? Want to come up?
My name is James Duggan. I live at 49 John Burke Drive, and I've lived there for 33 years. This is not the first time we've come in front of the selectmen. Back in '95, we had a battle with the selectmen because the Conservation Commission raised the boards 2 feet higher than normal because they wanted to produce a wading pool for the kids down at Mahone Park. And that really infuriated us because the water level comes into our yards, kills the trees, kills the lawns, and all the vegetation around it. And the problem is, as I see it, and I've been told this by Mr. Corby, Mr. Chalker has some pictures of 2015 and 2016 from me, and what happens with when we get a terrible rain. Now, just this last April 1st, we had 2.5 inches of rain. That pond swelled up to 3 feet above its normal level, and I have pictures here to show it, and I have pictures here to show what it does to my yard. And I know everybody else around that pond has the same problem, some worse than others. The problem is there's too much water coming in than can go out. That dam was put up as a mill, wanted power to power the saws. And this is back at the turn of the century. That dam is only like 6 feet wide. Since the airbase has been developed, the river that goes up to the airbase is directly connected to that pond. And it makes a Y at the airbase. One leg goes up to Delahunt Drive. The other one goes the westernmost part of that airbase, right up to the road going in. And all this building up there in the runoff, I don't know who is, I'd like to find out who issued building permits for the town of Rockland in that area, because nobody studied the runoff. We've got twice the amount of water coming down the stream, and it can't get out that dam. That dam is too small for what's happened. And we're paying, we're gonna eventually, if we get one year I was there, we had 4 inches of rain in 24 hours. And that pond swells something terrible because of that dam is just too small. And I had Senator Keenan down. He looked at it in 2016, and he said, look at the concrete, how porous it is. And I said, I know it. Now we've got boards down at the dam. Mr. Chalk has seen it. And we have 12 inches of water over those boards going out, and that pond came up to 1 foot above its normal level in November of 2016, and it did it again in 15 too. And it stays that way all winter. It doesn't go down. And as I said, I've been there 33 years, and normally, before that base was ever built up, and I think somebody should look into that, because there's going to be lawsuits in the future. And all this water behind that dam, if that ever collapses, how many people do you think it's going to flood out?
Any questions from the board?
I live on the stream on Concord Street, and I've been involved. I was there when we flooded in 2000, whatever. We had the 10 inches of rain in 2 days.
Yep.
And,
I was
you know,
there.
we made a decision at that point to go in and clean out that river to
Yeah,
drain,
the
because
brook.
that's one of the major drains for the
Right.
town. Unfortunately, somebody took it upon themselves to illegally put more boards into the mess. So it puts everybody in a bind. You, the homeowner, because you didn't ask for it.
No.
The town, because we didn't ask for it, we didn't authorize it, we didn't do any studies on it. Somebody took it upon themselves, for whatever reason, to put extra boards in there. I've been underneath the street there, I've been in through the hole on the other side by the Phelps building and during the drought, and to see inside what they were talking about, what's going on there. There's a big cement block or granite block or something that's down in there, which could, I don't know if it does anything at all, but it just makes it unsafe for anybody to go into there to do something with it. I made suggestions to the town administrator and to the people to be of how we could probably let out a little bit of water at a time, and I'm not gonna get into it right now because it's still a big liability issue downstream. You know,
It could be
the year of the
a
big flood,
liability
the year of the big
issue.
flood, if the water was up to my house, and quite frankly, it stinks. I mean, I wish I had an answer for you. I wish I could say, man, I'll slam one of them boards out of there, but unfortunately, when they dug out that stream many years ago, before they put in Rockland Place, you know, it was a lot different. It was a big swamp. You know, there used to be a dock in my neighbor's backyard, right where the woods are. The old man Ledwell told me that years ago. He used to be able to go out there. When they originally cleaned the French stream out so that it ran in the channel so that they could build over in that area, I think, you know, that was the beginning of the trouble. Now it's just, you know, the
Well,
airbase is an issue. I agree. There's more water coming down there. Where else can it be coming from? You know, except for the sky.
we're connected, Studley Pond is connected to that airbase, as everybody knows.
Oh, yeah, French stream.
Because, right.
Right. There's another
Because-
stream, too, that comes through the,
At 1 year, they killed every fish in that pond by overflowing their jet fuel tanks. Another time, their sewage ran over, and they said, you know, Studley Pond is polluted, don't go in it.
right.
So that air base is directly connected. And the more building that goes on up there, the worse the problem's gonna be for everybody around that pond and downstream.
Well, there's a couple of things. To date, Rockland hasn't issued any building permits on their portion over there.
They
Nothing-
haven't.
Nothing's been built on
State,
the Rockland side.
nothing's been built there.
The state issues permits or oversees things, but we as a town have not issued any building permits. Nothing's been built on the Rockland side. If you go back to that area, I grew up in that end of town, and we had a conversation at the
Yep.
grocery store.
Yep,
Probably 39 to 40 years ago, they had dredged that whole pond. Reed Sand and Gravel
Yep.
was the contractor at the time. They went through and dredged. I used to ride my dirt bike there. So I grew up across, before John Burke Drive was actually a street that you live on.
Yep.
That was woods that I played in when I was a kid, so I understand. And that was before Ice House Woods was in there as well, which again abuts that. That whole area, when I was a kid, West Water Street would sometimes swell and overflow,
right.
and it would swamp, because we used to walk through, when I walked to school as a child, that also, that stream passes through part of the Rockland Golf Course. And sometimes we couldn't cross to walk to school because it was flood. I mean, I went down, I rode through that neighborhood when we had the phone calls. I rode through Ice House Woods. I rode through John Burke Drive. I rode around the other side of the pond. I've looked at the height. I know it's high, but I've seen it higher, and I'm not saying that's okay, but I have seen it a lot higher in my time in Rockland.
Oh, I've seen it a lot higher too, but there's been reasons for it. The Conservation Commission put 24 inches of boards in there because they wanted to make a park again.
Again, that
At
was,
that time, I'm quoted in newspaper articles that I have here, that I said, at that time, it was 20 inches higher than normal. Now, since November of 16, this past, the winter, it's been at least 12 inches higher than normal. And maybe you want to pass that down. That's what 3 feet looks like in my yard. And here's a picture of it at 3 feet. I have stakes out there beside my dock that are measured in feet. So I know when it gets to that third white mark, it's 3 feet above normal. My dock is a foot above the normal water level. Been that way for 20 years. And now all of a sudden, because of the base on 2015, they started building and comes right down French's Stream, right into that pond. And that dam, as Mr. Chalker can attest to, what is it, 6 feet wide? Maybe 8?
I don't know that it's that wide.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
I don't think it's 6 feet wide either.
I think it's probably
We were
4,
down the other day.
3.5, 4.
It's a little farther than that.
Yeah, I would say 6 feet,
Yeah,
but
it's close to that.
if the dam was taken down and went out at a 45 and made it wider, keep the same height, it would let more water out. You follow me?
I do.
What
And,
goes underneath Route 123 is plenty big enough to take the water down, but
Right.
it needs to be wider to let the water out.
Right, but
You-
there's gonna have to be some sort of study done, because there's 2 narrow pipes that go into, I'm gonna call it Rockland Place, only because that's what I know it as. That the pipes themselves are relatively, not big enough to hold an increased volume of that size. I don't know how much water we can do, spill over the thing extra to keep that from flooding in that area. I mean, there's only about a foot and a half of space between the water and the top of the pipe, maybe 2 feet or sometimes, and I've seen it, 2 feet over the hole, so, it's been a rough winter, and quite frankly, between the sewer and the highway and the town administrator and the board of selectmen, we're working on a lot of those type of issues throughout the town, because, it's like anything, drains get clogged, I guess, and you gotta go through them and make sure
Right.
that everything is working the way it should.
But there's more runoff coming down. That's the problem.
There's no question about there's more runoff.
Cleaning
but
the
if-
stream's just gonna get the water there faster.
Well, if we,
Which,
yeah, but I'm
you
not
know-
talking about lowering the dam.
Dam, yeah.
There's 2 boards that gotta come out, that's gonna bring it down, probably another 15 inches if it's a foot over last time we were there, it wasn't a foot over the dam, the water.
The water wasn't a
No,
foot
it was
deep?
it was probably about half, maybe 8 inches or something. It looked like it was going down somewhat, but again, like you said, you can only put 5 pounds of manure in a 5-pound bag, as they say.
Right. And we
So,
got 10 pounds coming in and 5 going out.
I agree.
That's the problem.
That's one of the problems. It is one of the problems, but the boards, illegal boards being up there, that's a major part of the problem. Because if they weren't
Well, I
there,
asked
that would be a lot, the pond would be a lot lower. Quite frankly, I have to announce tonight that the annual Kiwanis Club and Fishing Derby that we hold every first Saturday of June is not going to be held this spring, because there isn't any place for the people to fish from. And the places that you can fish from, there's poison ivy along the top of the wall, and being very allergic to it, I wouldn't have it. So we're going to postpone that to the fall, hopefully. We're going to have this straightened out. But the rain is going to stop first, so that we can do something about it, because if we, it's like we damned if we do and damned if we don't, excuse the pun. Because if we let the water out and it floods down below, then there's going to be a lot to be paid there, And so that we have to just make sure the liability is not assigned to the town, because
The
quite
town-
frankly, we fought over this when the last town administrator was here. I was involved in him and who owned the dam, and they said,
Yeah.
we're gonna charge us $1,000 a day if we don't get the dam fixed. And we found out, I thought that it was theirs. I don't have the paperwork back from it, but, you know,
That dam is Rockland's.
well, it goes under the state road, though. That becomes the issue, you know, there's damage to underneath the road itself.
Well,
That has to be addressed, and if the state would address that,
here's a
then we
piece,
could do something.
piece of paper in 1996, okay? And that was a newspaper article.
Yeah, I saw this, but that's.
The other concern we have is any of the residents downstream. I know that you have concerns with your property.
Right, right.
But simply,
That could be helped.
dumping the water out is only gonna go through.
That could be helped by dredging that brook.
So
If
these-
somebody got in there with a machine and cleaned that out,
Dredging requires, you know,
Yes, we did
permitting.
that.
well, not
It's-
dredging, but cleaning it out.
The DEP, I already fought this fight. I went down to DEP, and I fought them tooth and nail, because at the time that the place was flooded, nobody wanted to take responsibility, and as chairman of the Board of Selectmen, I declared a state of emergency, and I told them to get in there and clean it out. Next spring, we were finishing up down toward the end, toward the Summer Street end of it, when one of our people who love to cause trouble turned us into the state and said that, you know, we're in the stream illegally. And quite frankly, they
Right.
wanted to fine us $6,000, and Andy Triana was there that day. And after I finished with them, we very amicably said there'll be no more fine, and the next time we'll be good people and tell you that we're gonna take care of an emergency in our town. They're not there when the emergency comes down, you know, you gotta make decisions based on what's best for our town at the time.
Right, at the time.
And you have to,
right.
but you still have to file with them, because they wanna come down and say it's okay for you to do it. And seriously, I fought them fights, and, you know, it's
The only
not easy.
reason the state got involved is because we fought with the Conservation Commission and the Selectmen. One would put it up, one wants it down,
Right.
and we got nowhere.
But
So I think-
the actual pipe that goes underneath Summer Street is not that big either, so that there's quite a volume of water that, when it comes through that whole area, that's a spillway. It's a natural spillway, you know, right up probably into Concord Street, where in the old days, when the flood would come in the spring, that whole place was a swamp.
Yep.
Now they put the drainage in, if you will, and at the end of Summer Street, there's only a whole, probably it's a 3-foot pipe. I don't think it's even that high, because I've been in that pipe too, and actually pulled debris out of it when
Yep.
the drought is on, if you will, and pull the branches and debris out of it, so it can go through it, because it affects my backyard.
What would happen if we removed the dam? There's a lot of that going on so that the fish can migrate properly.
Well, like the dam, like, I mean, like, in my opinion, like, it all goes back to the dam. And the fact that, you know, like, it goes back to actually when I was working for Senator Keenan, right after he was sworn in, one of the first letters we got from the town was about the dam, and questioning the ownership of the dam, especially because Route 123 goes right over it. And I agree, sir, like with the development that we expect at the air base, and that hopefully
Oh,
a
it's
town meeting set
tremendous.
in motion last year, this is an issue that's larger than Rockland. And I know Mr. Chaka, like in the past month, and also in the past a decade, basically, he's been here, he's repeatedly weighed in with Senator Keenan, you know, like in Rep. Dave DeCoste. And I'm wondering now, especially with everything really burgeoning in all being interrelated, I mean, we're talking about DEP issues and these stormwater and everything else, whether like we can, you know, like as like a board, write to like both like our legislative delegation and also the governor's office, and really ask for like a meeting of the minds on this, because
I've gone
this
to
is-
everybody in the State Department. Nobody wants to talk to me. They say
And-
that it's the town's problem.
But like if this,
The town says it's the state's problem. Nobody has any money to do anything.
But like at this point, this is an emergency, and if we could,
There
I'll
was,
try
there
to
was an
bring everyone in the same
allocation,
room.
Mike, I think when you were with Senator
As
Keenan
in
to
a
fix the
bond bill.
dam.
Like it was in a bond bill, the appropriation was in a bond bill, and I think the issue is that though that a priority was identified and prioritized in a bond bill, the governor's office has never actually included that in the capital projects that would be bonded, if you will. And I think now what we have to do, again, especially with all the other development, with the challenges of the sewer department, just in terms of, their permitting stuff, like if we could really, and in my mind, we have to really, all of us heighten this as an emergency now.
It's gonna be if we
see
get like 4 inches of rain in 24 hours. This is what happened in 1994 in December. That's 4 inches of rain in my backyard in 1994. That's when the base wasn't touched. If that runoff at 4 inches of rain in 24 hours comes now, everybody's gonna be putting suits in.
The base was a base then, you had a lot of the runway still intact, back then in '94.
Be more impervious, so more runoff when it was base.
No.
Do you think
No.
there's more impervious now than there
Oh,
was then?
definitely. All those buildings have roofs, they got driveways, they've got roads. Every one of those has drainage. Where does it go? French's Stream, connected directly to that pond.
But-
The more building they do up there right now,
Yes.
the more runoff. They've taken and stripped everything. Don't forget, there was grass there and trees. Now there's nothing.
And forgive me for not knowing all the permitting requirements associated with the Southfield Union Point site, but most municipalities, new developments are required to meet the Massachusetts stormwater standards on retainage and
I'll
treatment.
bet nobody's ever done that on this project.
Are
That
you-
base, I'll
are
bet
you-
nobody's done a study on the runoff.
Are you aware, Ed, on the permitting process associated with development there, whether they have to meet the
They have-
Massachusetts
they have.
stormwater standards?
They have, and
How can somebody give a permit and not look at that dam where that all the water from that base comes down to that dam? How can they give a
in
permit
my
and
case,
say,
it was
this
back
is
to
gonna
the
take
dam.
care of it?
And the dam has always been the question. Now with the boards, it's been exacerbated. So if we could get, once and for all, like in my view, convene like a meeting of the minds, like and get to the, have some type of dialogue with the DEP, Mass Highway, there's another agency I'm probably forgetting. Together
Well, even
with our legislative
DCR has
delegation,
to
if
do with
any
that
way-
dam.
DCR, that was the
DCR
other
has,
agency, yeah.
has a section that it's dam safety. That's, and I've talked to
Yeah.
them all. Every
actually-
one of them.
we
I've
actually
called,
have
and I
letters.
can't get any help.
we have letters in our packet from DCR, and I'll quote from June 30th, 2011.
But something has to be done, and hopefully soon, because if we get,
Mr. Chairman, maybe I can help you out here. I'm Andy Triano.
I didn't see you sitting behind
Not
that one.
Andy,
You were
like
hiding tonight.
everybody, you know.
You haven't been here in a while.
Yeah,
We don't usually let them come to meetings.
I'm a Alan bodyguard. I'll tell you, you got a big problem. The biggest problem is the people throwing the leaves and twigs and bushes and things in the river and building it up. And the water's gotta go someplace. We have, on Prospect Street, when I was on the Conservation Commission, there was people filling in the river, filling in the stream, and dumping all kinds of dirt and trying to make their yard bigger. They have backhoes and everything else down there. But there is a big problem on leaves. And people, that's where they throw all the leaves, in the river. And the water keeps getting higher and higher and higher because the land is filling up. So if everybody stops and they clean, we used to have a firm come in and clean the rivers and take all the leaves out of there and the brush and everything else that people throw in there. and eliminate a lot of problems. Yeah, there's a lot of water, no doubt about it, there's a lot of water. But how are you gonna control it? Unless you dig down and you can't do that anyway.
Hi, my name's Robin Lynn, and I live over in Ice House Lane, and I can collaborate everything that Jim said, and I was also involved in 1995. But what I'm going to suggest is, you know, I know it's the long-standing battle with the state as to who really owns the dam, okay? I myself, like Jim, thinks Rockland owns the dam because it always used to, how it, you know, but that's neither here nor there. But I was wondering, couldn't we maybe be proactive and just hire a qualified engineering firm to do two things? Number one, the thing that's most urgent, tell us how we can safely lower the water in the pond now so that we don't flood people downstream. And then secondly, maybe give us an estimate for what has to be done to fix the dam, to enlarge it or whatever. And then if it's determined, and we can also put the state on notice that if it's determined later on that they own the state, that we will be back charging them for the cost.
Mr. Chairman, if I could. Mr. Taylor and Mr. Laughlin, do either of you know if this, I've heard some talk that this may have been a previous Army Corps project. Was this an Army Corps project?
It's currently under the DOT right now.
Okay.
There is they are at a stage 2 engineering on the culvert.
Okay.
You know, looking into the layout of it and being new to the job. There's a 50-foot layout of 123, which was, they started doing that in 1902, and the dam was actually added in 1920. So if you look at the 50-foot layout, I actually went out there with Mr. Shaka, and we measured it out. There's only, on the westerly side of Market Street, which is on the Studley Pond side, there's probably about a 1 foot to 16-inch jog out from the 50-foot layout. So, the only issue we would have here, if we got proactive, which wouldn't really be proactive at this point, because right now, you have it under a stage, you're in a stage 2 of engineering from the state, which this project is earmarked for over $4 million to do the culvert over. So the culvert would be part of the encompassing of the Route 123. So I'm sure the amount of engineering that's going into this job, it also has the easterly side, which is the fallout, on the other side, which is to the right of the Amos Phelps building. There's a 20-foot easement there. So, we've reached out to the engineers of the DOT, haven't heard anything back yet. Obviously, it's hard to, get a hold of anybody over there. But that's, from what I've got from the Department of Transportation, that's where they're at right now as far as that.
Do they have a consultant engineer on the project?
What is it?
Does Mass DOT have a consultant
It
engineer on the
doesn't have
project? They do it
anybody
in-house?
laid out on that. I usually deal with April over there.
Yeah,
That's usually not her, she's not into the culvert or the drainage, it's more of the roads. So, but she's been my liaison going back and forth. But that's where we're at right now, so they are engineering it, so.
Stage 2, what does that mean?
It means it's beyond the approval, it's in an engineering phase.
What's
Beyond the preliminary design.
So what does that get us, time-wise?
A lot of it for them is, when we deal with Mass DOT, there's a lot of public process, so where they are they at, like, when they say stage 2, I'm assuming they're beyond 25%, are they 25% design?
They went right into they're in an engineering phase, is what it says.
So, looking to design it, the culvert. But, I mean, is it possible for us to, I know on like Mass DOT projects in Quincy, we can get, when we partner, for instance, what's going on with the bridge right now, we're able to get some items with some cost share added to that project, but usually there's cost share. It's not necessarily full cost to the town, but you're saying, you're in contact with Mass DOT. Is that something in regards to the dam that they might?
They literally haven't reached out to us personally. All they're doing is sending correspondence over to us, letting us know what's going on.
And I've spoken with DOT, and in fact, in frustration, I asked Dave, is there someone he can talk to rather than who I was talking to? And we're all in agreement that we have to remove the boards. We're all in agreement that the boards can't be removed now. So whether or not the next 30, 60, 90 days is gonna bring some resolution, even by the removal of the boards, when the water levels are at a spot where we can remove the boards, but it's still spring. Typically, there'll be less rainfall later on in the season, in theory, less water going over the boards and an easier fix. And that should lower the level on a more permanent basis at the dam. Someone added boards, it wasn't us, but it's unsafe, and we've talked to Dave and John both, it's unsafe downstream to even attempt to remove the boards at this point. You know, and I understand that there's, I'm not unsympathetic to people that live around the pond, but at the same time, I don't want to be the cause of flooding people out entirely downstream. So we're at a, let's see what 60, 90, 30, 60, 90 days
It
bring.
sounds like the boards would have to be removed systematically anyhow, in increments, because you wouldn't want to release the boards entirely.
Does Rockland have the capacity right now to remove the boards when it's at a safe time to do it?
We don't have the capacity, so to speak, but we've talked with DOT, and that's what we're trying to get to. Is there a way to do it and do it safely? Mr. Ryan has a couple of theories, and I don't know that he's an
I
engineer.
just said, you know, go to the first board and pry it up this far, put a shim in there, and it's gonna let out another half an inch of water. I mean, it's, again,
But we just know we-
liabilities.
So the 30, 60, 90 days for the board, and my theory is, in working with Dave and DOT, hopefully we'll have better answers and more answers,
Right.
but we can't do it today. So what is 30, 60, 90 days gonna do for, maybe get us some of those answers, and as is less rain, a better opportunity, because it's a lot easier to move a board. I had someone tell me, even with the amount of water going over that, you wouldn't be able to remove the board just based on water pressure today.
Pressure.
Didn't the highway department used to do it with the backhoe?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
There's a gate right there, and Bob Corby used to back up with his backhoe
Yeah.
and take boards out and put them back in after a storm.
Bob Corvy's the one who said you probably couldn't pull those boards right now with the amount of water going over it. We're still May, and we still have a lot of water.
Get
You
back
and
to your
Carol?
other question, Robin,
Bye.
about whether we have an engineer. We don't currently have an engineer on staff. We don't have an appropriation for an engineer currently. The only thing I
Do we
can,
have free cash?
free cash was spent at, it would have to be next year. Certified free cash was spent at annual town meeting. And the question
It's
is,
scary when that water starts getting high.
You saw
And
the
so it makes a
pictures,
lot
that's
of
what
work,
happened.
too.
no, I understand.
Rest assured, though, we're gonna do what we can to get it taken care of and get those boards out.
You
I'm
get
afraid-
one-
I don't care about my land, I'm afraid of my house.
I hear you.
My basement is in the ground by about 3 feet. When that pond comes up 3 feet, we're getting close to being level with my basement. And I have a raised ranch. I don't have a full cellar, you know? I have a walkout basement.
I just put an apartment in the basement.
Yeah, mine's finished too. It's gonna cost thousands of dollars to me
Well,
to tear off everything that's down there out and replace it, once it gets waterlogged.
I'm with you. I
You
live,
can't let the sheet rock stay there, because it's gonna turn to mold, and the insulation behind it on all the walls.
I'm with you. I live on West Water Street, probably a couple houses past John Burke,
Yep.
on the right-hand side. And right now, my backyard is underwater.
Yeah, I saw a house down there the other day pumping water out.
Yeah, that's probably my next door neighbor.
Okay.
But in
For me,
2010,
I couldn't pump my cellar basement house, because where am I gonna pump it to?
Yeah.
it just
Pond,
it just
it's
comes
coming
coming
in.
back, yeah, yeah.
Believe me, to the board and to Mr. Duggan and Ms. Lennon, I'm not unsympathetic, but we know we can't
Yeah.
remove the boards
Right.
today.
correct. But
It's
we
been going
will,
on for 2 years.
but we will solve, we will, but we will solve the problem
We'll
this
stay
time.
on it.
I think 90 days, you're gonna have mosquitoes everywhere. I have 6 inches of water 100 feet up in my yard.
Well, can't help the rainy season, unfortunately, and mosquitoes. I mean, I'm against spraying myself, quite frankly, but we have mosquitoes if they get, like we do every
There's
year. but-
standing water everywhere.
I know, but hopefully,
The problem
hopefully,
is the water
yeah, but
can't get out
hopefully,
of that pond.
hopefully the rain's gonna stop. We're gonna get normal rains, not an inch and a half or 2 inches every other week. like we've been getting for the last month or so. Great to end the drought. It's a pain in the ass to put up with the results of it. You know, I've been down there a number of times over the years. This is my first rodeo when it comes to that drainage system, and I know that Mr. Laughlin is and the sewer guys are on top of the whole situation too. And again, we get a whole big picture to look at. All right, so here's a problem, all right? It starts right here, but it extends out here. So we have to encompass the whole thing and straighten it out, and we'll do it. Because I think the board's pretty well committed.
Well, and
Getting it
I
done.
think we had someone here, I don't know if they're here, from Wyman Fields. Mrs. Maganelli?
Ms. Magnorella.
Miss Magnarelli, and she's been on the phone because she's had drainage issues down in Wyman Fields. And part of the thing is we talked to Dave, is if we, to Dave Taylor in Highway, that if we let more water out, that then backs up some of the streams downstream and it affects her. And we have Manzella Court.
But, you know, I went down there.
There's
to
water
see what they
everywhere.
were talking about, the neighbors and stuff like that, and, you know, there's three triangle sewer things. Two of them are 2.5 feet down, one is 1 foot down. What the issue is, I'm not quite sure. They seem to think it had to do with something that you guys did to fix something.
We looked at that. That was at the 140
Right.
area of
Yeah.
Manzella Court. We did look at that, and we did pop all the manholes off. There is good flow, but what we found out there is years ago, that house that they had the major problem there, there was actually a spring under it in 1954. So what they did is the town actually allowed them to connect a French drain system into the manhole. So what we happened, and that was my theory, and then I reached out to Bob Manzella, and he confirmed the theory that yes, they did get a special waiver to tie into that, but what happened over years, it was the old cardboard corrugated pipe. It's broken down, it's at failure. So what happens now is any of the water that comes from the manhole goes directly into the French drain now, and it works exactly the opposite. So we're in the process right now to actually disconnect the manhole from the French drain system, which should alleviate the problem. But that is also the lower end of town. That's the lowest topography in town. You've got, Wyman's Field, which I grew up right there, and then also, then you got the other end of that is Manzella Court. So there is significant flooding issues down there. I think we resolved a little bit over there when we cleaned out the catchment area for the outflow. But there was, as John would attest, there was significant flooding down on that end of the town, which as a Manzella Court, everybody down there said there hadn't been 20 years. So this was the first time in 20 years they've had the flooding.
Right.
So.
95, they had a big flood. In fact, West Water Street was underwater, right there
Yeah, I
at the
remember
French
that
Stream
too.
where it crosses, by the auto body shop right there. I have pictures of that, going through in a truck, and it's water on both sides of the street.
So what happens if we don't get any resolution from any of the state agencies in 90 days?
Well, hopefully that the town administrator and the highway and super and the sewer guy and anybody else who wants to get involved in the board will come up with a solution that works for everybody, so that we don't flood anybody out and we cure the problem. So it's just gonna take, whatever, if it stops raining and the creek don't rise, then we can drain more water. If it stays high and it keeps raining like it is now,
We can't drain more water because we don't have the capacity to remove the board.
that's what we're working with. There's a number of things that we're gonna try to do, and eventually, the decision we make to do one of them.
The theory is that there's less rain, so there's less water going over the dam, so the dam
Less pressure.
becomes less pressure, and that the streams downstream, that everything after the spring every year, the water recedes as it does in summer, it becomes drier, and that it'll be easier to remove the boards. Now, that might be, Mr. Ryan, I think, was ready to get in a kayak and do it himself with a crowbar the other
But didn't
day.
I read in the letter,
But-
Mr. Chalkett, no disrespect meant, but didn't you tell the state that you won't under any circumstances remove the board?
Our position is it's not ours, or we said if they would grant us a waiver of liability, because if we get in and do something, we're liable. Let's see where we're at in 60 and 90 days, and it's easy enough to remove the board, and there's no liability for anyone.
There you go.
But we're not removing the board, my advice to the board, I should say, and I know it may not be the answer that you want. My recommendation was that at this point in time, we're not able to, it's flood out the person downstream. It's okay with me. I don't care as long as I'm all set. Flood them out. It's not something I think the board should be doing it at this
So
time.
I'm getting mixed answers, I think.
No, the answer is that we are going to solve the issue, which is not gonna be tomorrow.
No, I understand that.
Okay, so that all the minds that are involved here, that, we know what the problem is, we know what a solution can be. It's just a question of whether or not we get the proper permission and the proper liability coverage so that we don't hold the town liable for a mistake. That's all. It can cost an awful lot of money if you make a mistake with that much water.
Mr. Chairman, I just have two more questions for Mr. Taylor. Do we have plans, I do not have the historical context as my fellow board members here, so plans would be very helpful to me to see where the flow is, whether or not there's any outfalls, especially if it shows elevation in regards to the pond. It would really help me better understand the hydraulic nature of that watershed.
If you want to come to my office, I have that.
You have plans. It would just be helpful, my fellow board members, have been here, lived here, breathed here their entire lives. I don't have that, so looking at those
GIS
plans.
map, and we show all the outfalls.
Excellent, so you have it on GIS. Do you have your pipe segments on GIS? Your drain pipe segments, are they on your, do you have a layer on your
We have
GIS?
some connectivity, it's not, the connectivity throughout the town is not complete, although the majority of it is complete.
All your do you have your manholes there too? Is that helpful?
Yep,
Flow direction?
manholes are
Do you
there.
have an elevation layer too?
Yes, we do,
Perfect, great. I'll come down and take a peek.
absolutely. Just to reiterate Ms. Magnarelli's problem, Dave and I responded on the day we got a call from the police department. And Ms. Magnarelli absolutely did have flooding in her backyard, but that day, we had 3.62 inches of rain, and there wasn't a dry spot on the South Shore. That week, we had 4.6 inches of rain. The year to date, from January 1st until 5/14, we've had 24.81 inches of rain in Rockland. That's what we measure daily at the sewer plant, as compared to 19.1 and 16.6 in the preceding years. So this has been a much more severe rain season. Again, that 24.81 is quite a bit. And to relieve Ms. Magnarelli's problem, Dave has come up with an idea to build a catchment around there. On that day, we opened up some catch basins, we drained the area, and then when it was safe, we went back and we cleaned the grate in front of her 36-inch pipe that's in her backyard that travels southerly, goes across Moncrief Road to Levin Road, dumps out onto Levin Road, goes to Summer Street and ends up in Hanover. So that is what was done on that day to relieve the problem. And I don't believe we've had a problem since, Ms. Magnarelli, have you?
No.
No, we've had 8 inches of rain since then, since that day of the 1st of April. So we've had 8 inches of rain and there hasn't been a repeat problem since Dave's crew cleaned up the grate.
And that's very true, but there's a lot more to it, if I could speak. I want to start off by saying that the 55 years I've lived in this town, there has been a flooding problem on my property. I've been to the boards. I've stopped going because I wasn't getting anywhere. So my last chance is this board. In 1990, an abutter that, in my opinion, came down that brook and widened it. It's a brook now. It is not a stream. If you want the name of that person, I'll tell you. The person is deceased. It was Anyone with an ounce of decency would not have done what this individual did. Wyman Fields has been a flood area for the 55 years I have lived in this town. 3/4 of my yard floods up. You're the only ones that can solve this problem without my losing my property. And years ago, it was just a stream. It became a brook, and now I have a tributary. What I has discovered in 2014, there were 3 storms together. 2 storms in December of 2014, 1 in January of 2015. What I discovered, the brook was no longer overflowing, but the tributary was, and I was getting water from the right-of-way, the part that is not cleared. I'm at my wit's end. No one should have to live in an area that does nothing but flood when we get heavy rain. None at all. And I'm not the only one suffering in Wyman Fields. The reason I asked to come up here is the fact that I'm not the only one suffering in Wyman Fields. And in the April 1st flood, I woke up on the 2nd, and I did call the police department. And I appreciate what that officer did, sending another officer down, and that officer called Mr. Taylor. I have no problem with dealing with Mr. Taylor and any other person that ran their department. What is it?
So,
Thank you. The other person is Mr. Laughlin. And I bother Mr. Laughlin all the time, and he's always very courteous to me. He comes down. The problem also is that when it hits that board, where the pipe is, there is a easement on my property and probably on the property next door to me. It backs up. There is white foam coming down that brook somehow, and it's continual. If you went down there today, the part where is nearest the pipe, there's a big foam. What I'm asking this board to do is to come out and see what is going on behind my property. And years ago, this problem could have been stopped. The federal government came in. I came to the meeting. I thought it was a meeting for all other residents. It wasn't. They came here to advise this town how to correct their flooding problems. The Board of Selectmen at that time, and I waited a long time to get it in the paper, they decided not to do anything about it because of the cost. The cost that this town is going to have to pay to fix the problems within Wyman Field are a lot more expensive than what it would have cost this town years ago. My other request is to get a hold of the federal government to come in here and advise you how to solve the problem. The other problem is that it's not going to go away. If this town sits back, we're going to get a storm where I'm going to get wiped out. And I don't know if I mentioned that when that brook was widened, the Conservation Board came out and they measured that that brook was widened from 3 to 4 feet. And it was for a person in this town that didn't give a damn about anybody else but themselves. That's all I'm asking, for you people to come out and see what's going on down there and get the government in here. I wouldn't even bother with the state. In regards to the widening of that brook, in 1996, the sewer commissioners took my letter and the findings of the Conservation Commission and wrote a letter to both the state and the federal government, and they came out. I believe it was on, excuse me, I need my glasses. They came out on the sewer commission meeting. I attended the sewer commission meeting on February 14th, 96, and I explained the whole thing to them. In March of 21st in 1996, a letter was sent by the sewer commissioners to both the person in charge of the Wetlands Protection Program and also the person in charge of the Regulatory Division of the, whatever it's, federal agency. It's gone on too long, and I'm not going to keep saying this, but will you please come out and look and see what I am putting up with? And it's not only me, as I've said before. All of Wyman Field is suffering. And I appreciate again what Mr. Corby and Mr. Taylor have done for me. And that's all I have to say. Are there any questions?
What's your address?
239 Moncrief Road. There's a right-of-way right next to my house. The other thing is that tributary is getting longer, and when that overflows now, the brook doesn't, it's going out further into the right-of-way. And every time that brook overflows, either when it was just the original stream, it ran down my driveway, it ran down the street, and it floods the street from my house down. And that's dirty water going through the fields.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Thank you very
Again,
much for
that's
listening to me.
Another reason why we haven't lowered the boards yet, because we're concerned about downstream issues as well.
Well, the
So it's a
trouble is,
global problem throughout the town. Not only does it affect the people on Ice House and John Burke and on the other side of Reed's Pond, Studley Pond, but affects everybody from that point down.
well, I'm not affected by Reed's Pond. Where my water, the water coming into Wyman Fields comes from is near the high school. Travels all the way down, comes across Union Street, goes down East Water Street, ends up going down Howard Street some way, whether it's through people's yards or a pipe going down Howard Street, crosses Market Street, and it dumps out into the back of the gas station there, which is now Prime. That's where my water is coming from, and that was for the head of the Conservation Commission in 1991.
Would that be Cushion Brook?
Now, Cushion Brook goes out to Liberty Street. She's absolutely right. The water that's going down that way comes from East Water Street and goes to the southerly direction, Crescent Street, Vernon Street, Howard Street. Those streets there all go to the George Street, all go to the Tedeschi's parking lot, or the former Tedeschi's parking lot, underneath Market Street, and goes out to the wetlands. Since they built the golf course, there's been some repercussions to that as well.
Exactly. Right.
When they built the golf course, when that was Elpress Pig Farm, it was a little different. When they stripped it for the golf course, it's different. And now Wyman Fields, back at Moncrief Road, does have more flooding concerns than what they had originally.
Well, years ago,
As far as the
we
dates, I'm not
skated-
exactly
We used to skate
sure.
out in those woods when the farm was there, and there was that waterway that ran down from those little vernal pools, if you want to call them that, through the property down where the kids used to ride their dirt bikes and everything, and then down across Moncrief Road. I remember in those days being through those woods quite a bit, and everything seemed to run fine, except for occasionally where it went under Moncrief Road, it seemed to flood there, but I don't know the second stream you're talking about, the tributary.
Well,
But we'll look at that.
it developed over
just
the
so-
year.
It's actually an overflow. Dave and I have looked at that overflow. We're trying to get some engineering support to see if the elevations work where we could take that overflow tributary that she's calling it
Yeah.
and tie it into the catch basin in front.
The
Oh,
other
yeah.
problem is shortly after the golf course was built, there was a very serious flooding storm in Wyman Fields. I walked down through the woods, 2 houses down from me, and what I saw across the way was a flooded area, a large flooded area. Then there is a ditch that is full of water, and I noticed it was coming down. And the way it was flowing down, it would be going past my house. I followed it beyond my house, and what I saw is someone had cut something into made a cut, I should say, into the brook that allows the water from the golf course to come into my backyard. They're not the cause of all that water, but they're contributing to more water than I'm receiving. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Part of the issue downstream, as was explained to me, is that Reed's Pond doesn't go right by her house, but where Reed's Pond goes and where hers goes eventually meet up.
Right.
And that gets to a capacity that it can only take so much as well.
Right.
So by Reed's Pond lowering, it affects, as we've talked about, the senior housing, Rockland Place, and it also affects the ability of that property to drain. It is a town-wide property, and especially as Mr. Laughlin explained, that we've had 50% more rain than we had 2 years ago. We've had an unusual amount of rain. I hope it stopped. I don't want to stop building an ark.
There you go.
But we are in contact, Dave's in contact, we're trying to do what we can.
Let's see if we can get an update in 30 days from Dave, John, and I know Deidre said she was gonna go down and take a look at,
You know,
the drawings that John
stage
had.
2, you know, we can get some help maybe with that. We can talk to Senator Keenan's office. Representative DeCoste, I know, has very good contacts within the governor's office, and let's see what we can do.
I'm sure
Okay.
we'll get it done.
Make sure you notify the DEP, whatever you do.
There you go. Andy.
Well, I thank everybody for coming forward tonight and giving their side of how they're affected by it. We just finished up on our town drainage issues. We're gonna revisit that an agenda item in the future. But I did want to point out that I did talk to the water department, and believe it or not, even with all the rain and whatnot we've had, our reservoir is actually still 15 inches below normal levels. Because of the drought we've had the past few years, we were down nearly 70 inches at one point in time. We've been able to make up. I thought it was on. Sorry about that. All right, so where was I? On the town drainage issues, we're going to go through and keep that an agenda item until we can get some sort of resolution for all the residents involved. But speaking of water, I did speak to Dan Callahan, who runs the Abington Water Rockland Joint Waterworks. And believe it or not, our reservoir on Hingham Street is still 15 inches below normal levels. So with the droughts that we've had in the past couple of years, we were down nearly 70 inches, according to Dan. And even though the state says that the drought is over and we have water capacity, Dan still says we're down 15 inches for our reservoir. So it's something to think about. I know in the past, with the drought, everyone was looking at some sort of regional type of solution, whether that was MWRA or something for water all across the South Shore because they had the capacity. And a lot of the communities were realizing the drought. Now, in this particular issue, we have, you know, the opposite of that. We have residents who are concerned because they're being flooded, you know, whether they're upstream, downstream, there's still some concerns there. So we need to work together as a board and try to figure out some sort of resolution. So we'll keep it an open agenda item. Okay, moving on to item number 11. We have fund transfers. Mr. Chalker.
Mr. Chairman, there's a request from the Department of Health Insurance and Group Insurance, a transfer of $18,000 from the appropriate account name is Group Insurance, and that is account number 0191451-515080 to the Fire Department to cover the overtime payroll line item 0122051-515080, and that is as a result of the Park Street fire overtime and fire investigation.
Do we have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous
Abstain.
vote? Oh, one abstention, sorry.
One abstention?
I'm gonna abstain,
Ryan.
only because I can. My wife works for the fire department.
I got it.
There you go.
Also, from the health insurance, $5,000 to the police department, health insurance line item 4595080 to the police department 0121051-511010. And again, that was also overtime as a result of the fire.
To approve.
Second.
All those in favor? That one's a unanimous vote, thank you. Item number 12, we have the Union Point feasibility study. And let me start with what actually transpired. I had asked Mr. Chalker to send a letter off asking if we could have the feasibility of Union Street Gate opened up. That letter was supposed to go out before we had a change in the board, because the previous board, before we had two newly elected members, had given me the authority to handle Southfield issues. So what we were looking for was a feasibility study. It was brought to our attention that the two new members had not voted on that, so I had asked Mr. Chalker to send a letter apologizing for the mix-up, which went out on May 11th, okay? And what it basically said was that the two new board members were not on the board, and we did not vote on that, and they had no vote in it. So with that, I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of discussion around town as far as why someone would ask about the feasibility of Union Point Gate at the end of Union Street. And what I had said to a few people was, when the base initially closed, it was 20 years ago. It was 1997. You had a different board, you had different needs, the town was in a different place, and the development over there wasn't going to be such that it is going to be now. Now, with the state re-looking at the process for approval of the plan changes over there, I thought it was prudent, or at least to have the state take a look at that portion for us. It's been pointed out that in 2009, Article 11, that the town voted to decline the Board of Selectmen looking for an appropriation to go through and fund a study. We weren't asking for any funding, we were just simply asking for feasibility. As well, I've since had discussions with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce and L-Star, the master developer of the Union Point project, and we're going to go through, in collaboration with South Shore Chamber of Commerce, do an economic study as well that L-Star will reimburse the town for. So the idea is, things change in town. We heard a lot tonight. We talked a little bit about how Reed's Pond, and I gave a little history that when I was, 39, 40 years ago, I used to ride a dirt bike there because it was drained and cleaned, and today we have a different problem over there. We have too much water in the very area that we used to, as a child, play in. Well, it's similar circumstances with the Union Street Gate. I know that some people think it should stay closed, some people think it should be opened, and I thought that before any decisions were made, whether pro or con, that the best way to do that is get factual information. And what would be the impacts, be both, positive and negative. And again, I got some phone calls about it, people were concerned, and I had a reporter from the Ledger give me a call, and I simply said to him that we were looking for a feasibility study. And I also said to him that, which he didn't print, was that if anyone who's been over in the base area there, that there's actually a rotary that lines up directly with Union Street, both sides. Union Street used to go all the way through. Union Street on the Weymouth side, which they commented on, and then had Union Street on the Rockland side. But I didn't design that rotary that's in that particular position in the parkway. That was done with previous boards. Now, I don't know if those boards had agreed or approved that design that the state had put in place, or if that previous board did nothing and I didn't take any action, or if they helped plan the rotary over there. I don't know. I can't tell you what happened 20 years ago. I wasn't on the board. Those are other people who are on the board. But I can tell you, it seems awfully strange that the state would go through in a parkway that they invested nearly $30 million in, design a rotary, a turnabout, whatever you want to call it, that lines up directly with Union Street on either side. And again, I don't think the idea was to slow traffic down. I think the idea was to possibly in the future have an option of either connecting to the downtown or connecting to the other side in Weymouth. I can't tell you what the designers thought, the engineers thought. The Parkway had opened while I was on the board, but the board that I was on had no say in the design of the Parkway or any of that. I know there's residents here in the back who live up close to that end of town, and we've seen the same residents when there was a 40B that was proposed up there that fortunately was traded off to have some development inside of the Union Point. And all I can say is boards change, people change, the town changes, and whether you agree with change or not, I think we owe it as leaders of the town to at least explore and look at any options that are out there, viable options for any type of issue that might come up. There's been a lot of things that people say we should have, would have, could have, but I'm the type of person that I like to take a look at both sides and then make an educated decision of how to proceed. If you all remember when the legislation changed, I sat up there and I said, me personally, I don't think it was the best deal, but it was the best deal we could get for the town at the time. So, I've lived in town since '69 when my parents moved here. So I've been here a while. I've seen a lot of things change. I've seen a lot of things change for the positive. I've seen some things that change for the negative, and I've seen some things turn back to the positive. So I think what I'm really trying to tell people is we're simply looking at, is it worth taking a second look at a new, or we'll say an old issue? Is there a new way to make it work? Is there a way that maybe something could come out positive for the town there? It's no different than VFW Drive, the cutoff, when they changed my wife grew up on Weymouth Street, right on the corner. When I was younger, we used to I could go down Hingham Street, take the cutoff, and come over. As everyone knows, the cutoff's gone now because they redirected and rerouted the traffic. Now, they did that for a reason, to make traffic flow and to make things work. But, it took everyone a little while to get accustomed to that. How many times did we go down Hingham Street and say, oh, Don, I have to go all the way up and around now because I can't make it, I can't take the cutoff. So there's things that change, some for the good, some for the worse. I can't say for sure what the outcome will be of the feasibility study or even the economic study. But as one of the board members, you know, who was supposed to be taking the direction of the town, I don't think it would be, wouldn't do us justice if we didn't at least take a look at exploring the feasibility and the economic impacts of what that would do. Now, I know, you know, if you take a ride down the end of Union Street, it's a quiet street, but it's one of the widest streets. But also, there's been a lot of dumping that's gone on down there in the past. That's been limited lately with the, you have the trailhead there, and you can park and get in and walk the trails and get access. I know that both life safety, police and fire, has expressed desire in the past to go through and have, at the very least, an emergency gate or something so they could access over there. And again, I don't know where that's going to go or what's going to happen with it, but if we don't look at things and try to ask questions and find out answers, then we're never gonna progress. If we said that's the way it should have been, you know, we'd still have slaves right now. But the country changed, things changed. If we said that's the way it should be, women wouldn't be allowed to vote. If we kept that mindset. So there's lots of things out there that you have to look at and change. I mean, nobody thought we'd have a president who's, you know, doing things they're doing now. But again, the majority of people voted for the president, and we have to stand behind the president and move forward. But again, if we don't look at things, we can never really find out what the outcome's going to be. So I simply sent a letter off for feasibility, and I don't know how any of the other members of the board feel about it. I'll open up for discussion with them, and then we'll take some questions from the audience. Anybody? Larry?
When it was first, people have always wanted the gate to be shut, and who can blame the people up that end of town? It's been a beautiful neighborhood for them, and you know, they put the rotary in there, which points right at Rockland. We talked to the chief about it. You know, would he like to have access through there? I bet he would, but he can't go right now because the road can't support the ladder truck, right? The pitch of the road prevents that. All Ed's trying to do, or all we're trying to do, is to put all the ducks in a row so that when the time comes, an educated decision can be made. The state's going to pay for these things. Everybody wants a road study. It's got to be done. You know, nobody likes to think that maybe someday that gate will be open, but it may not be next year, it may not be 5 years, but at some point, they're talking about at the end of that road, at that rotary, if you saw the presentation they gave us the other day, there's going to be a small city there, very shortly away from our door. You know, who's going to know if the state might mandate it open? We don't know, quite frankly, but we want to know what's the feasibility, what's the ramifications, what's the economic impact, what's the traffic impact. It's just one step, again, on a road to a road. And what's going to happen to that road in the future? I can't say, you know. Quite frankly, probably Ed and I won't be here. A lot of people might not be here before it does open or gets voted to open. I don't know. Times change, people change, the plans changed. Back when we had Tri-Town, you know, things were different then. Then we got Southfield, and then we got something different then. Now we have Union Point, and we got something different then. And then the state's saying, you know, they want a little bit of a hand in all this stuff too, because they're paying for the roads. So just do the feasibility study, get it done. We got something we can tell you, what people say about the whole thing, and then the town can make a decision after that. It's not the end of the world. It's not going to happen again. It's not going to be something that happens tomorrow. But the future of Rockland demands that this board, or any board for that matter, examines all its options, whether you agree or disagree with them. Because at the end, we can agree to disagree, or we can solve it one way or another. But again, you know, just because you take a step forward doesn't mean you're going to take the walk across the country. It just means you're going to take the first step to see if if walking across the country is something that you should be able to do or need to do. So, that's how I take it.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, my concern with what's in the letter, or what you're asking MEPA to look into, is more, maybe it's not super specific. You're asking to look at some feasibility studies, and MEPA will dictate whether the applicant needs to undertake these feasibility studies based upon the filings of the different parties at interest. My bigger concern is that if the applicant is required to look at the feasibility of opening the gate, the applicant doesn't bear the costs associated, I don't mean the financial costs, but the community costs associated with the potential opening of that gate. And so my biggest concern is to ensure that the town has an interest, or the town has a consultant that has that represents our interests, because we as residents are the ones that bear potential costs associated, community costs, traffic costs, utilities, costs associated with bringing the road up to grade, whatever it may be. Those are costs that our residents are going to bear. So my biggest concern is to ensure that if there's a feasibility study that's put on, paid for by the developer, that the town also has their own consultant and their own study done to represent our interests. I've worked in this business long enough to know that, your consultants can advocate for you. Not everything is necessarily black and white. There's a lot of shades of gray. So I want to ensure that if we're not solely relying upon the study that's put forth by a party that really has no costs to bear as a result of the results of the feasibility study. That's all I need to say.
Anybody else? Mr. Mullen?
I have a few things. Well, first, I really, in terms of what's in the letter, I don't have an issue with. It's really consistent what I've heard from folks in town. What actually last summer, at the middle of August, I actually met with probably over 3 dozen residents of the North Union Street, our neighborhood, and residents from Greenwood Street, Forest Street, Loretta Ave, and a whole bunch of other neighborhoods up there. And I think really, this letter is consistent with at least everything that I mentioned there. We can talk about this all we want, but without having any type of objective information, it doesn't make any sense to keep going around and around and around the circle. The thing, like I mentioned, and my only concern with the letter itself is just, I guess, the process. I've always said, and even before I ran for selectman, that any a conversation about opening the gate, be done together with residents, and I think just in terms of the process that the letter has come up, I think if it could have come before the full board, I know, or if such letters in the future could come before the full board. I know each of us are liaisons, to different groups, but this issue in particular, just because it's really just because of that this issue, if we could have at least talked about this in advance rather than engaging residents in advance, so everyone really knew the expectations, knew that finally we were just really trying to have some information, some objective information as a town. That's my only thought about this. The content of the letter. I agree with. I think what town meeting did last year really affirmed the town's support for the Union Point proposal right now. But this whole effort, whether or not there's a city at the end of the road, as Mr. Ryan mentioned, Like it does affect homeowners. It will affect us as a town, and just like I want to make sure that going forward, because I see a lot of our potential there, that we just go through this more as a town rather than like us actually sitting here up here like and saying, okay, like we've ordered a feasibility study, at least having some conversations and engagement beforehand. That's my only thought anyways.
No, in the 20 years that the base has been closed, a lot has changed over there, yet we still have nothing built over there on the Rockland side.
And I agree, and that's
And again,
the sense from
last year, the residents overwhelmingly supported changing that zoning over there so we could accommodate commercial, and then we could have a future tax base so that we can continue to expand and provide services to the townspeople. And again, part of that process was when they come back up through and take a look at traffic and things. I mean, if you sit there now, anyone who's caught between a certain hour, if you're on VFW Drive, sometimes you're backed up there. I mean, we could all almost say in this room that you could use at least a signal there, something other than the flashing light. I have the same issue on Spring Street. Sometimes I find myself, because I live across from the ball fields, I find myself going out, taking a right down Spring Street, taking a right on Summer, so I can get around, because sometimes I don't want to sit at the end of Spring Street trying to take a left to go somewhere, or a right because of the traffic pattern. So again, without having studies, there's no way to be objective, and there's no way to get data. I can recall that I was on a committee before Board of Selectmen that we were looking at a fire station substation. And at the time, the committee concluded that they couldn't make any recommendation because they didn't have the data to support it. So it never went anywhere because you had no data. And without data, you can't make any informed decision. So what we were looking for was some data. Now certainly, Ms. Hall, once we get some data, we can go back and either decide to say we agree or we disagree, and at that point we can appropriate some funding if it's deemed fit, and we can ask the townspeople to appropriate funding if we want to go through and say we think we should study this further or not. I mean, I can't tell you what's going to come out of this. I don't know. That's why we ask. If I had a crystal ball to say this is what's going to happen, then I'd be playing in the lottery tomorrow night because it's a bigger jackpot than tonight's. But if you take a look at the letter, there's residents who are sitting in this room here who've written letters to the same people, asking for certain things that they have concerns with. We, on the other hand, or as being the board, we went through and we simply asked for someone to look at it. Now, I may have misstepped with the fact that we had new people here, so I'll fall on the sword for that. I thought the letter was going to go out sooner. It didn't. So I apologize to the two board members for that, and we sent out a letter to correct that. But I still stand by the fact that I think we need to have some sort of look at it. You have to look at things again. I mean, if we say, no, we're not going to look at it, then we might as well say the same thing about these people who were here tonight about Studley Pond. Why look at it then? It's not going to change, so why bother looking at it? Why even go look at the plans, Deidre? Not going to change. It's the same type of thing. We need to take a look in order to go through and see if we can make an educated decision about what can or cannot happen in the future. And again, I mean, I'm being a little facetious about the Studley Pond thing, and I don't mean any disrespect to the people who were here previously. It's the same type of thing. We as a board, this board here is a new board this year. Next year it could be a different board. The year after, a different board. We simply try to do what we have in front of us. We try to take any problems or issues that may come up. We try to address them. And I tell people all the time, this board's going to make mistakes from time to time, and future boards are going to have to correct decisions or things we've done, just as we're doing now. I can't say who designed the Rotary back then. I can't tell you who was on the board back then. But I know some of these people that are in here, you lived down there when that Rotary was designed. I don't know if you attended those meetings. I don't know if you went through and said, no, we don't want the Rotary. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't pay attention to things until it directly affects them. And as town leaders, we try to look at all things globally, what's good for the town, what's good for the town as a whole, and how we can go through and realize and how to address concerns on any issues that might arise. I mean, you talked about earlier tonight, the highway, you talked about fixing the problem for the woman who was before us, was here 55 years. Now, prior to that, we had a drainage issue that was fixed prior to, that was started on George Street prior to Dave Taylor being in. And that, again, it's a small piece, but affects everything downstream. So everything's a piece that becomes part of a bigger picture. And, you know, when I said earlier about, you know, people voting and slavery and things like that, if the country or people closed their eyes and ignored things and didn't look at problems and solutions, we would be no further advanced than we were back then. And whether you disagree, as Mr. Mullen said, or agree on a particular issue, at least we owe it to ourselves to hear both sides so that we can make an informed decision as a town. That's all we're trying to do. I've spent countless hours with people from open space, conservation, different boards. Anytime there's an issue that comes up, I'm right there to take a look at the issue and try to find a solution for anybody. As far as the base, I've been probably the point person since being elected to the board on the base, and I understand that we're trying to do a lot over there. And I've told people we may not see that in the short term, but hopefully in the long term, it's going to pay dividends for the people in Rockland. Maybe it's our grandkids, maybe it's our kids, who knows. But the idea is at least we have to think about shaping or solving a problem as opposed to just putting a hand up and saying no. I think sometimes if you go through and say, let's take a look, maybe you might see a different side of it. Or you might be able to have some input to shape what can happen or can't happen. And I, for one, I'm never predetermined about anything. I try to keep an open mind, and I always look at both sides. And I'm always willing to compromise on something if it's for the best of the town. And again, I don't know what people are expecting or where they want to go. And I know that myself. I mean, the ball fields have been busy lately. Now I have people parking on my street again. And I say, it's a great thing, because my kids use those ball fields, and it's good to see them being used again. Because for a while, they weren't being used because, you know, sign-ups weren't there. So we have a lot in front of us with the town, not just Union Point, not just the gate. We're looking at, we still need to continue road projects. We need to address the senior housing issue in town. We still need to take a look at a fire station at some point in the future, a new elementary school. The problems are going to be reoccurring problems. They're not one and done. And I think it's a similar, at least in my opinion, you take a look at the base. We've had a multitude of proposals over the past 20 years. I don't know what's going to work and what's not going to work, but all we can do is try to put our best foot forward. And we're fortunate in this town that we get a lot of passionate people. And the people who are here tonight, you know, I mean, I recognize a lot of you in the audience, and it's the same thing. You're passionate about those items, and I respect that. And I also like the fact that you're still there and you still come out and you're passionate about it. I mean, that's how I got involved in politics. I was passionate about an item and kind of lit the fire. But we also have to be prudent and look towards the future and what do we want to see in town? I mean, when I first ran for selectman, I said maybe the center of town should be off of Hingham Street. I don't know. I also said maybe they needed a mayor form of government instead of, you know, 5 part-timers. I mean, when I first got on the board, I think the budget was in the I think the budget was in the 40 million range. Now we're at 66 million in climate. I mean, that's a lot for 5 part-timers, you know. And granted, we have a strong town administrator, and we've got very good department heads and very good employees, and we have the support of the residents. And all we're trying to do is look forward, continue that support, continue the goodwill, and look out for what's going to be the best things for the town. And the only way, in my opinion, we can do that is to go through and look at all sides of a problem. I mean, we're going to have one coming up with the school, the elementary school. We're going to need to find a site. We're going to need to know where the best site's going to be. We're going to look at cost, all those things before we can present it to the town. The fire station, I mean, everybody knows it's been outdated. It's been added on to, you know, when the mobile station was there, and they moved it down when it was Harry's Mobile for a lot of you guys. Remember Harry's? That's now, I can't tell you who owns it now, but the mobile gas station got moved down to make room so they could add on to the fire station. Things changed, and now the fire station, I mean, you talk about that where people maybe want it, they don't want it, where do you put it? The fact of the matter is we still need to have a fire station, a police station in town. And no, it may not be, you know, if it goes in a different site, I'm sure those people are going to say, well, I really don't want it in my backyard. And the other people might say, well, I've had it in my backyard. It was no different when we were a kid when the jets flew over. You could read the numbers off the bottom of them. It was like clockwork. They're gone. It's not a base anymore. It's going to provide jobs, it's going to provide housing, it's going to provide opportunity. I don't know where it's going to end up, though. Mike?
In all due respect, Mr. Chairman, can we get back to the agenda?
Yeah, well, part of it was the Union Point feasibility study. It lends itself to the whole aspect of the town, Mike, because it's not just about Union Street, it's about the whole town.
I understand that.
And that's what I was alluding to, you know? So, anybody from the audience want to speak on it? Come on up.
My name is Mr. Nichols, and I live at 361 Pleasant Street in Rockland. And I got what you're saying, and I like what you're saying. But I've been in the town for 24 years. I, too, used to look at the planes coming over. I could go right across the street from my house, get right out there in the, right by the base property. I got pictures of pilots. I loved it, okay? I, too, was here when the base closed. And I, too, was here when all these developers come in and they were starting to do the base. And their big thing was, you know, the big thing at the time was opening up that gate, okay? Myself, my neighbors, people in Rockland, we come out, we didn't want the gate open, okay? So now it changes hands again, okay? Now, again, they brought us to town meeting, and the residents of Rockland, we spoke. We didn't want the gate open, okay? I understand advancement. I understand, you know, you could use the traffic coming through the town. But the feasibility thing, is that something that you and the board suggest that, you know, that the Commonwealth look at, or whoever's gonna look at it, that, you know, to see if this would work for us? Is that something that's coming from you guys? Not the town ain't initiated, you are, right? Is that how am I understanding this?
The board has leaders, okay, has leadership in the town, initiate things. It's no different than the school saying, we need a new elementary school because ours is old and decrepit. If we left it up to the townspeople, they would keep the old and decrepit one because they don't want to pay for it if they don't have to, okay? There's a lot of things in town that if, in fact, you don't bring ideas up to people to take a look at it, then it's never addressed. If we ignore it, it never gets addressed. If we want to keep it closed, then we say we keep it closed. But I say, take a look at it and see what's there.
Yeah, well, again.
And again, I
understand what you say. I understand where we're all coming from. But you also understand we're the residents down there. We're gonna be at the brunt of whatever goes on.
That's right.
Right now, we would like it to stay like it is. Like me, a townsman, I voted for it to stay closed, along with a whole bunch of other people who voted twice. Now we want to revisit it a third time. My thing is you're not listening to, we're listening to you, but you're not listening to us, okay? We said we want the gate closed. We would like to keep the gate closed, okay? Because what happens now, you open the gate, now I got a 50 million car coming by my house, okay? The neighborhood's gone, can't play hockey in the streets, kids can't run around, you gotta watch out, there's gotta be new lights, new this. It's gonna be a cluster, you know, it's gonna be a mess, so. I'm against it, obviously, you can see, and I would hope that you would stick to what the residents already voted on. Twice we've done this, we've been here doing this. I've been in the town 23 years, and I've been, you know, I listen to it, I watch guys on TV, I come up, just do what we want. I understand if it's, you know, let's do it this way. Let the Commonwealth of Mass suggest what they want to do, instead of us going to them. Let them say, we got to open it, then you put it to, give it to the town, let them vote on it. Again, this is, third time up here for a gate, which we already shot down twice, just listen to us.
Can I just ask a question? Has there ever been a feasibility study on the gate opening?
so.
So
Well, let's put it this way.
So I'll say
Well,
first.
no, let's put it
I'm on the
this
record
Okay.
as being against the gate opening.
Okay, that's
I'm
fine.
against the gate opening.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
what I ran on at this time.
Yep.
But making that decision, I'm making that decision now based on what I know, but I don't have all the facts.
Yeah.
I think it's incumbent on us
Well,
as your elected officials, right? I think it's a responsible thing for us to do
Yes.
is to look at all the facts. And if we have an opportunity to get facts
Yep.
that support your argument saying it would totally overwhelm the center of town, then I'd love to have that document in hand and say, this is why I voted against the gate opening.
Yeah, but see, my thing is, you're pushing the agenda. I let the Commonwealth of Mass come in and say, hey, listen, over Southfield, it's getting too crazy. We need to get that gate open. Feasibility, let the Commonwealth make that decision, not us. Not us. We already voted for it not to be, twice.
So, in response to that, if the Commonwealth says we're going to open it, what part of that process do you have at that point?
What part of, well, if the Commonwealth says you gotta open it, then you gotta bring it to the town. Let the town decide again, okay?
Well, look, if the Commonwealth says we're going to open it, where do we have at that point, is what I'm asking you?
Well, if the
As opposed
Commonwealth
to us
said-
having facts and data to know whether it's economically viable,
Yep.
what the impacts would be, and then we have time to look at it. Do we know what it's going to be? I mean, it's all based on data, then based on a build-out at some point in the
Yeah,
future.
but the thing is, you're pushing it on them. If you're gonna do a feasibility, you're pushing it on them. There's no need for that. I mean, what's the need for it? You gotta open up a gate, let a few cars through, and what's it gonna do for the center of town?
I don't know. The center of town, we just recently
Well, and what-
tried the
and we
40
know what
yard
it's
to
gonna
try to
do
get
for
it
the-
back.
We know what it's gonna do for all the little side streets around there,
Yeah.
okay?
24 years ago, what the center of town looked like.
24 years, well,
Well, no, really, it's a valid question.
Yeah.
24 years ago, what was it like up there?
it was a little rough. It was rough. I remember a lot of motorcycle gangs and stuff like that. I mean, do you want to go back like that? I remember the cutoff. I worked in the town for 20 years before I moved to the town. I liked the town so much I moved here. But the thing is every time, somebody wants to,
I'm going to be perfectly clear. I didn't say whether to open it or keep it closed. I simply said feasibility, so we'd have something for the future. It's a hot topic item, whether you want it closed or open. And whether you vote people in or out, okay, based on how they feel about the gate. I mean, someone in the back said Mike ran and Mike's opposed to it. That's fine, okay? I'm not opposed to open it. I'm not opposed to keeping it, to having it closed.
The thing
All I
I'm
wanna
opposed
do
to
is
is
look
every
at-
time somebody says something, we have to come up here and vote on it. We already done it twice.
Respectfully, I just want to say, the way that this feasibility study is being presented, which is being paid for by the client, at this point, the client is L-Star, and that could never be in the benefit of this town. Unless we are the client, that's the only way it could even potentially benefit this town. If L-Star is the client, the feasibility study will most likely benefit L-Star.
And he's the third guy in, and every time somebody comes in, that's always mentioned. Every time a new person takes that over,
Yeah, it was
it's
going to be
mentioned.
Mall of America years ago. And
I know what it was.
we didn't end up with that.
No, of course.
There's a lot of things, it changed over time. A lot of things change over time.
Yeah,
All I
well,
said was,
again-
when it
again.
changed, might be time to look at it.
You
If
know.
it's not time to look at it, don't look at it.
Again, I've been here twice, that's it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mike, you want to come up?
Hi, Mike Bromberg, 373 Forest Street. I wasn't actually here tonight to debate the opening of the gate, but it turned into that a little bit. But I guess I have to ask, is I just, Ed, nobody knows more than me how much you've been up the base and active up there and spent hundreds and not maybe thousands of hours up there. But the thing is, what I was concerned with this, the MEPA process was, I don't know, is it the policy of this board now that the chairman will write letters to the Commonwealth and comment on behalf of the entire board? without a vote. I don't remember a vote from the last board. I don't remember a vote from this board. So that's the concerning part of me. It's like, it's not a transparent policy, I don't think, you know what I mean? Because if it was going to be voted on by the board, I think you would have found us people all up here and discussing it as well, you know what I mean, as opposed to after the fact. So that's one of the concerns for me. I've been active up there for a long time, and I can tell you right now that I don't remember the exact year when they were planning the parkway. I was involved a little bit in that. I do remember the DOT was not in favor of that roundabout at all. They were fighting like crazy not to put any funds into that roundabout at all. But they were being pressured by somebody to put that roundabout in there.
So you're saying that it was a previous board that wanted it there?
I'm not
to be
sure,
opened?
but I'm assuming that it was this town because I know Councilor Smart in Weymouth, right from the get-go, he listened to the residents of Union Street in Weymouth and said, deal's off the table, we're not opening the gate in Weymouth. So, and they're still staying that way according to the newspaper the other day. So I can only assume that it was, you know, the powers to be in Rockland, whatever time frame that was. I don't recall exactly when it was, but I think the parkway was probably completed about 5 years ago, so probably 3 years of planning involved with that, you know, so.
Well, Weymouth also has the fact that the parkway empties out onto VFW Drive and they go to Weymouth that way as well, which is nice for the Weymouth people. Not that much of a skirt to go up that way versus that smaller street of Union. So it's nice that they have the luxury of doing that and having us have more additional traffic that way.
So if I can just maybe clarify a couple things too. The state can't mandate the town or the developer to open the Union Street gate. So it will never be the state that's going to come in and say, you have to open the gate. So that should be perfectly clear to everybody. And the state doesn't pay for any study for it either. It will be either the developer or the town of Rockland. So if the developer who did not mention anything in the notice of project change about opening the gate, and if he's being pressured to now, I'm assuming that it's only by this board that's pressuring him. So anyways, the data is good. You know, if it's going to be open, obviously you're going to need an informed decision. But from my perspective, living in the neighborhood, I don't think it takes a feasibility study to understand the traffic that's going to come out of there, because the traffic at 34,000 in the old master plan trips per day, boost that up to 80,000, and you have one road to Weymouth Street, one road to 18. So it's going to bring buku traffic down to North Union Street. And I can only assume I'm going to lose 8 feet of my front of my yard so they can put a sidewalk on each side of the street. Because if there's a set of lights at VFW and there's a set of lights at the muffler shop, Forest Street is going to be a raceway. So avoid all that. So I'm assuming if in the feasibility study, it's going to take a sidewalk on each side of Oregon and Greenwood.
I don't know.
80,000 trips a day.
There is no study.
80,000.
I know, but we don't know what it's going to be, Mike, because there's no study. That's what I'm saying.
I don't think it's going to take a study. I think it takes comments. You know, all due respect, I think 80,000 vehicle trips a day is.
But they're all not going to go
If you open the gate,
Go to Rockland.
if you open the gate, they're going to find shortcuts, and it's going to be through all the side roads, and the people who live there now, like myself, I got a very small house, but I love Forest Street because it's so quiet. And that's why we live there. We don't want a raceway coming down our street. We don't want our front yards taken away for sidewalks and every other thing, you know what I mean? And the same with people in Oregon and North Ave and Salem Street, probably. You're gonna have to put sidewalks in and, you know, more sets of lights everywhere. It would be nice to be able to drive right in, especially if they have a supermarket right inside the base. I don't see it. It's gonna destroy the town. That's just my opinion, so.
I don't know what it's going to do. I can't tell you if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but without data, I can't make an educated decision on either side of it.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I don't know if it'd be 80,000 cars. I can't tell you that. We don't know. I know that you got traffic on Hingham Street now when you sit down there. I know you got traffic if you go Route 18.
Actually, I didn't notice that. You mentioned Hingham Street. I didn't notice anything from the town of Rockland about Hingham Street because in Hingham Street, because I was on the Citizen Advisory Committee, I knew about the traffic that's going to happen. With the 34,000 vehicle trips a day in the old master plan, even if you doubled up the lanes on Hingham Street, it would have been full capacity.
That's right.
So now you have 80,000, but there was no comment from the town to say, well, what are you going to have to do, triple Hingham Street to accommodate the traffic? So that's another problem in itself, you know, besides the gate, but it's another problem the town's going to have to look at. You know, the other good thing about this town is we're so close to the highway, we can, and that's why a lot of
It's
people
all
come
access,
here.
that's what people want.
But if it's going to take me half hour from Forest Street to get to Route 3, because it's bumper to bumper traffic, and you know how it is going to Queen Anne's Corner right now, you're backed up to Home
Queen
Depot
Anne's Corner's tough to
sometimes
get
at
there.
noon time, you know.
I
so-
agree. I know it's tough.
Yeah, so, I mean, the whole region has to be looked at, of course, but,
I think that's what I put in the letter, that a lot of the other areas were already looked at.
right. So again, I guess I have to ask, will it be the policy that this won't be discussed and that the chairman was just
No,
going to send out
initially what
letters to-
happened was, the previous board, prior to Mike and Deidre being on the board, had given me authority to go through and weigh in on Southfield. So all I simply did was send a letter off, and I copied the mayor and I copied Abington, and we're just looking at the feasibility, because there's a discussion out there that everyone's asked. And as you just said with the traffic, Hingham Street can't accommodate it, so where does it go?
They want to bring it to Union Street.
I don't know where they want to bring it to.
It's the only other third exit and entrance, so.
And they talked about that before, too. Direct exit into the base at one point. Don't know. You have to
The
look.
reason they didn't have the Mills Mall come because they couldn't put a direct exit right to Route 3 because of wetlands. They couldn't do it, and that was with, I think, 50,000 or 55,000 vehicle trips a day. Now 80, I mean, without that direct access, as much as we want the, and I do too, I'm all for building it up and having revenue coming into the town, but we have to be realistic of the effects of it, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
and all
So-
we've done was try to give them the tools so that we can decide
Yeah.
what we want, what goes in there. And it's the same thing with downtown. I don't know if Union Street's gonna be the downtown in the future.
Well, they're not really too successful anymore downtowns, I don't
No,
think.
unfortunately,
Either, like Hanover
when-
Malls are going south, everything's going south like that, but
Unfortunately, it's changed. So
And,
it's just worth looking at, that's all.
there will be future comments to the MEPA process, to the EIR. Is it fair to say that you'll hold, you know, next time you're going to hold a meeting so that we can discuss it before
Yeah, I
you,
have no
before
problem.
this
I've
board
attended
sends
many
comments?
meetings over there.
Because, you know, discussing it with your fellow selectmen and then sending off a letter to me isn't an open process, and I just, you know, thank you for your time, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody else want to comment while we're here?
Hi, Tom Manning, Oregon Ave. You're doing a feasibility, you want to see about a feasibility study to open up the gate. Are you talking about this end of the gate or the other gate?
Which one? When you say other end of the gate?
We'll call it the Weymouth end.
The Weymouth end? I've asked them to look at both sides of it. Look at Union Street.
You've asked
Weymouth
who?
weighed in. Have you seen the letter? Has everyone seen the letter?
I haven't.
Mary didn't email everyone out the same letter?
Mary who?
Parsons. I thought she sent
I don't
everything
even
out.
see Mary yet.
Oh, I thought it was her board that had decided about the rotary up there.
Here's the,
Let me see.
filing too.
Yeah, I'll read it aloud so everyone can see it. It said, "Dear Secretary, on behalf of the Rockland Board of Selectmen, I want to express our support for the Union Point development located in Rockland, Abington, and Weymouth. The town has made it abundantly clear that it supports Union Point and the benefits that it'll bring to Rockland. At our May 2016 town meeting, we voted unanimously to approve zoning changes that will allow for more than 2 million square feet of commercial development within our town's borders. This opened the door to significant economic development for Rockland, while at the same time adhering to smart growth principles that will pay dividends for decades going forward. Past proposals for this site have come before you. As a result, much has been studied and learned about the challenges and benefits of development at this location. We recognize the changes proposed by Union Point require additional studies to be undertaken. We ask that you focus the study on areas of prime concern, such as traffic and water-related issues. We specifically ask you to also look into the feasibility of opening Union Street. Thank you for the time. We look forward to taking a step towards seeing Union Point come to fruition. So we've asked for water. We've also asked them to look at traffic, okay?
We
Which-
specifically asked that you look into the feasibility of opening Union Street.
That's right, because it's been a hot
Again-
topic item.
Again, check the feasibility for going through Weymouth. See how much Weymouth is gonna be all for that. You can bet they're gonna.
Yeah, that's
push
sure.
that
They
up.
want to dump it right out on Hingham Street
Right.
right now. Because
They wanna
without water, that's what's going to happen. Because water's the other part of the problem. Right now, we need to find a
I
solution.
thought they
for
got
water.
okayed with the MWRA up there
It's not there yet.
for the Weymouth. So you're
MWRA.
talking about the Rockland end of things.
Rockland and Abington end. That may become MWRA water. That's the solution for water. Anything that gets built over there will end up eventually being MWRA water.
Well-
That's 5 years out.
You can talk about MWRA water all you want, I'm talking about the gate. That's
I
what
understand
bothers
that.
me. And if you're gonna do a feasibility study to open it up, open it both of them at one. Not just the one coming into Rockland, even though both gates are in Rockland.
As far as I'm concerned, we don't even have a gate down there right now. We have a big rock. There's not even a gate there anymore. And again, I'm only asking them to take a look at it because it's going to impact traffic. And if you don't ask if it's feasible or not, how do you know?
All right, thanks.
Anybody else? Any of the other board members? No. Okay, moving right along. We have item number 13, Rockland Saves Energy Update.
I'll try and be brief, Mr. Chairman, just giving you an update. This is an annual calendar. We have until, as you can see on the calendar in front of you, December to complete our goals. We're at about 27% through March. There are a number of air sealing. We've got 42 out of 158. The chart speaks for itself. This is really an attempt, I think, on my part to keep Rockland Saves in front of the viewers and ask them to either contact this office or go onto our website and make sure that they sign up to try and save on air sealing, insulation, primarily light bulbs, but there are rebates available to the residents on heating systems, wireless thermostats can be given to them, and rebates on refrigerators and recycling. Some of the goals are rather small, but I think on a heating system, as long as your system is working right now, that they can come in if you're in line to get a replacement heating system and give you a rebate or a coupon that's worth some serious funds. I know, Mr. Chairman, you've taken advantage of it as well as a number of other residents, but please look around your house. If it's been more than 2 years, you can have Rockland Saves come into your home and do another evaluation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, no, it's a good program. Okay, next up, item number 14, annual appointments.
Annual appointments before you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chalker.
Chairman, are about 4 pages, so we will try and get through that. If you will allow me, I don't think you have to vote on all of them. You can vote them as a group unless you ask for a hold. Animal Inspector, Patricia Whittemore. Charter Maintenance Committee, Pat Foley. Chief Procurement Officer, Alan Chalker. Chief Procurement Officer, alternate, Eric Hart. Community Development Advisory Committee, Patricia Foley. Constables, Adam Loomis, Gerald Loomis, John Torchio. Town Council for Land Use, Galvin and Galvin. Council for Tax Title, Laura Brown, Attorney Laura Brown. Council for Labor and Town Council, firm of Clifford and Kenny. Council on Aging, there are 11 members. The following members are for 3-year terms. John Conway, Edward Malone, Patricia Penny, John Rogers, Audrey Ryan. Cultural Staff, Jane Tetzlaff. Director of Emergency Management, Scott Duffy. Dog Hearing Officer, Alan Chalker. Fence Viewer, Tom Rubel. Gas Inspectors, J. Michael Tanner and Gary Young as an alternate. Historical Commission, the red indicates they are new members. Dave Davis is a new member. Peter Dow and James Paul to be reappointed to 3-year terms, all of them 3-year terms. And a new member, Matthew Smalley. Housing Partnership, annual appointment, William Cormier, Susan Egan Tasker, Patricia Foley, John Rogers, and Larry Ryan. Memorial Committee, annual appointments, a new member, Richard Laria. Returning members, Anton Materna, John Melvin, Jeff Nigerian, and John Rogers. Municipal Hearing Officer, annual appointment, Alan Chaka. Old Colony Planning Council, Agency on Aging, Rita Howes. Open Space Committee, Kathy Kirby, 3-year appointment. Parking Clerk, Stacia Callahan. Plymouth County Advisory Commission, Michael Mullen. Taxation Aid Committee, John Rogers and Patricia Penny. Tree Warden, David Taylor. Weights and Measures, annual appointment, Tom Rubel. Wire Inspectors, annual appointments, James Paul, James Sawyer, and Michael Dutton. Zoning Board of Appeals, 5-year appointment, Rita Howes. Is there a motion?
Motion to appoint.
Second.
All those in favor?
Before I vote, I'll vote for everything, but I just want to abstain from Charter Maintenance Committee, Community
You want to
Development.
abstain from anything involving Patricia Foley?
You got it.
Thank you very much.
You'd never vote for her.
5-0 abstains.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wait.
Unanimous with the exception of Mr. O'Loughlin's.
Yep.
Okay, next up, we have the town administrator's report and correspondence.
A couple of things. We just want to let the board know that the appointment to fill the vacancy on the school committee will be on your agenda on June 6th. They are forwarding 2 names that they have vetted at the school. I do not have their resumes yet, but they will be forthcoming, and I will forward them to you as soon as I have them, and we will be having a joint meeting with the school committee to fill the vacancy. That will be for the remainder of the year, and then I believe it's a 3-year term that the person, if they're interested, would have to run for. We will have recommendations coming over from the superintendent for the school building committee. There will be appointments made for that. Anyone who's still interested in getting on the school building committee can forward their resumes and letter of interest to the school superintendent. Also not in your agenda, in your items, I apologize, it came in late from the police department, but Peggy Millen is asking for, to shut down a small section of Moncrief Road, number 3 through 9. I guess it's a very small area. They're having a graduation party, and this has been approved by Nick Zioli, pending approval by the board. He has reviewed it. However, she didn't know she had to come to the Board of Selectmen to ask to close a small area of the street, but Mrs. Zioli says it is fine.
Move to approve.
Second. All those in favor?
Thank you very much. It does require a vote of the board. We will get to her. If you've noticed, the new sign is out front. We're working on it as best we can. We know it's not supposed to be moving. I think our biggest critic was on Facebook claiming, oh my God, it's moving. We went through a day of kind of testing, making sure that different fonts worked, and a couple of signs that we put up. Does it change? How does it change? We didn't even have control the first day. I think it was less than a day before we gained control of it. We are well aware that the message has to be static. It's interesting that the individual that complained the most on Facebook took 8 months to stop their own rolling signs at their particular place of business, despite 3 warnings from the town, and for the record was never fined, despite them claiming they were on Facebook. But as you know, if it's on Facebook, it must be true. It has to be. But the sign is looking good. We've got a great response from the public. People have actually walked in and say they like the look out there. If somebody needs something on it, they need to contact Susan and I at my office, and depending on priorities,
which we will determine based on, of course, we want people to pay their taxes and license their dogs, et cetera. There is a request for to close the street, Everett Street, to traffic from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. for the 3rd annual cornhole tournament to support ALS.
Motion.
Second. All those in favor?
Thank you
Unanimous
very
vote.
much. And there will be a giant, and I mean giant, yard sale supporting the Rockland Pac 12 on Town Hall Plaza on Saturday, May 27th at 9 a.m., from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. And short of thanking Tony Materna once again for his service, that will be the end of my remarks. We know the board and the town will recognize Tony's contributions in an appropriate manner at a later date. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Selectmen's comments. Comments and opinions expressed by the individual members do not necessarily reflect the views of all of the Board of Selectmen and are the opinions and comments of only the individual member. With that, Ms. Hall.
Thank you. I want to thank the Rockland Police Department for the Peace Officers Vigil the other Sunday evening. It was Monday evening. I was able to go. It was nice. It was well attended. Many people here don't know me personally, but my father's been a police officer for 39 years. So a lot of what the chief said about the day-to-day sacrifice, including, not being around at holidays and Thanksgiving, and, really hit home. And I was really happy to be able to be part of that. And I want to thank our police department and our fire department, all of our first responders for what they do for us. I also want to take the time to thank the chairman for responding to the, when we talked about item number 12, sending out the correction to MIPA. I personally had an ethical issue that had to come up in regards to that, to contact the commission, the Ethics Commission, and I did that, and things are all set. But it was a personal issue for me, and I'm thankful for the response and the quick response by the chairman, and I want to thank him for that. I also want to just take the time to remind the board and the people at home that, we as a board, we act as a board, and our charter basically states that we shall act by majority vote only. And I just want to make sure that people realize that at home, and we remind ourselves that that means that that's not permissive language, that's mandatory language, and we need to, I know that makes us move slower and, makes it maybe a little bit more cumbersome to get our work done, but that it's important that we do that, not only for transparency purposes, but also like in this situation where I had my own personal issue that no one could have really been aware of. So I just want to take the time to do that, and again, thank the chairman for correcting that issue for me in a timely fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. O'Loughlin?
No comments tonight.
Mr. Ryan, thank you.
I'd like to say congratulations to my grandson for graduating from Columbia University today. He's also the nephew of the fire chief, so we share a happy moment. Sean's done very well. He's the son of my oldest son, Larry, and doing quite well for himself. He's also was in the Senate, co-chair of the Senate of Columbia University, which he takes right after his grandfather, getting into politics and straightening out the world. The Fishing Derby, which normally would be held on the first Saturday in June because it's free fishing weekend, will not be held in June this year because the water is too high and there's too much poison ivy covering the rest of the area so that nobody can fish there and be safe. So we're going to do something maybe hopefully in September when school comes back into play. We'll take the summer off this year. We went to the bike rodeo, great time. Kids all had a good time. The Kiwanis, the police, the fire, sheriff, state police, Gene Blaney, Youth Commission, the Boy Scouts, they're all there. Everybody pitching in to teach the young kids to be safe on the bicycles. That's always a pet peeve of mine, the guys that ride on the street on the wrong side. They think they're walking against traffic. When they're a vehicle, they should be driving on the correct side of the road. The police vigil, another one of those things you never really want to have to go to, but you have to go to it because you have to respect the men and women in the law and order community that, firefighters run into building burnings when everybody else is running out. But policemen are running into serious, it could be physical confrontations of firearms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Very dangerous job for both guys, and it's have to sit there and listen to endless name after endless name come by with these guys, and you look them up and you say, boy, I saw the guy's name in the news, and geez, I saw this guy's name in the news, and it just goes on endlessly, and it can be disheartening, but heartening in the fact that we know that there's still men and women out there that are still willing to do that job, despite the dangers that come with it and the sacrifices they have to make to their families. I guess that's about it for me tonight. This will be enough. It's been a long meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Mullen?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Wow. You sure?
I'm positive.
I'll just keep it brief. I want to thank everybody who come out tonight. Whether you're pro or con for an issue, the only way we can address issues as a board is to know what the residents are thinking on both sides of the issue. Unfortunately, we have some water issues we're going to have to deal with in the very near future. And as well, I had already spoken to Mike and Deidre and expressed my apologies to them where they were new members to the board and kind of got caught in that crossfire of the letter for the feasibility study. And again, I'll stand by any of the comments I've made. I've been willing to meet with anybody, whether you live on Union Street, Forest Street, Oregon Ave, Loretta Ave, any of those areas up there. It's not just about your concerns, it's about the concerns of the town as a whole. A lot of people have supported the new project over at Union Point, as well as supporting the downtown. And as a town leader, we're trying to go through and take a look at anything that might make the town better. And I can't tell you what that's going to be. I don't know what's going to be in it for data, but we get up and say I have all the answers, I'll be lying to you, because I don't. And the only way I can try to find answers is to get data. And otherwise you might as well call it fake news, because we can put out a press release or an article, but unless we actually get facts, there's no way really to dispute anything or refute anything or promote anything, if that's the case. So, and sometimes we look to other towns and other cities of what they do. Earlier tonight, we took a vote to waive fees because we looked at other towns for what they're doing, because we want to see the success of the farmers market. We want to see the success of the town as a whole. And as you can tell, sometimes we don't always agree on things, but we can do it in a courteous manner, and we can just try to look to moving forward, trying to find solutions to issues and problems that come up. And again, when I first, built the house off of Spring Street, the traffic, you could walk down Spring Street. There's days, it takes me 5 minutes to get out the end of my street down there. But that's what they call progress. That's what they call change. And again, it doesn't make me any happier when I have to be somewhere and I'm stuck in traffic trying to get out. But, at some point, maybe someone from the board will bring a request for a feasibility study for traffic down Spring Street in that end of town. 'Cause we have a lot of people going to Hanson and that area of town, Hanover, that they use Spring Street for a cut-through. And again, I don't have all the answers. Never claim to. But I'll tell you this. I've always looked at everything objectively and openly, and that's all I had suggested there. If I knew that we were going to get this kind of turnout for feedback for a feasibility study, I would have requested it for the special town meeting, so maybe we could get that article passed for possibly for that piece of land, you know, if it pans out. Again, everyone can be passionate about items, and I respect that, all kidding aside, but please allow the town to at least gather the information and give you the facts before someone makes a decision about anything. And that's all I can ask. And whether you agree with that or not, at least respect the fact that the town is looking to gather the facts versus just saying, no, we think we want to open it because we don't need a traffic count, as someone alluded to tonight, because we think we know what it's going to be, when we really don't. It wouldn't be fair to other members of the, other residents in town, other members, you know, to say, yeah, well, you're going to repave that road up there, Dave, but you don't know what the traffic's going to be, so we'll just call it something else, and if it lasts, it lasts. I mean, that's not the way you look at problems, that's not how you address problems. And the way you find common ground is you need to go through and have a dialogue, and I think that dialogue started tonight. So hopefully we get some facts, and hopefully we can move forward with discussing it in the future. And I'd like to thank the board for supporting me for handling the school building project on behalf of the town. I appreciate that vote. And with that, I'd like to wish everyone a good night, because it's been a long night. And we'll see you on June 6th. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.